So I just
We're live by Martin. We're live, by the way.
we
Meth
are
probably
live,
should
and so my notifications drop down in a certain specific spot on the screen, and when you do a sub, it's Ruby Rod, right? From Fifth Element, one of the greatest movies of all time, Luc Besson, right? Chris Tucker's Ruby Rod. I want that character and everything, but he drops down and it's the one where he's going ooh and kind of making out with the camera. Coach is right next to where Ruby Rod drops down, so it looks like he was making out with Coach. It was amazing. But thank you so much, Sir Flukes, a lot for that tier 1 sub. That is 9 years of friendship. Thank you so much, my friend. And cheers. So, before I do the intros here, oh fuck it, let's just do it live. Let's just get it right into it. I am, of course, the magical Mr. Mephisto. Welcome to AOS RantCast. This is episode 90. We're calling this one AOS Financial. I have some financial experts from across the community joining us. We're going to talk a little bit about sort of planning out an Age of Sigmar army and jumping into it. And hopefully this helps both new and veteran players alike kind of with that next purchase, that next army. Basically, don't do what I just did this year. We'll go into that in a little bit. So, of course, right above me on the screen, you can see AOS Coach.
G'day.
In the top right, you're going to see Martin Orlando, good painter, Elfman, and
hello, friends.
And to my right, the Mad Lad himself, W. Soren, making his illustrious AOS appearance on an official episode because you were on the Rantathon.
Well, good evening from Texas, and thanks to Haywo, I even wore my hat.
Hat game, super important. Super important. Kicker dropping a tier 1 sub for 12 months of friendship. Congratulations on the rainbow Meph skull badge there. It's now all of your magical powers are unleashed and unlocked. Everyone knows rainbow, by the way, is my daughter's favorite color. If you ask my 4-year-old what her favorite color is, it's rainbow, which is amazing. And then G-Dad dropping a tier 1 sub for 15 years of friendship. And also dropping 1,000 RDP. To remind everyone, the chat gang ain't none to fuck with. And G-Dad dropping 5 gift subs. So everyone enjoy your emotes. Andrew Yells asks, where in Texas? Don't DOS yourself. No full address. Or don't dox yourself.
No,
Sorry.
I am about 30 miles south of Fort Worth.
Right on. All right. And Soren, not to have his title stripped away, dropping 5 gifts. Hey, what are you doing? You're on the show.
What's that got to do with anything?
What a mad lad.
One of my biggest things that I will always say, support your streamers. Support those people whose content you enjoy.
Oh, there you go. And when you think about supporting me, go support someone else because I'm far too humble. It's really awkward. The only reason I really so Twitch, you talked me into a Patreon first and foremost, and this is relevant to the topic. Like it was Soren, you pretty much single-handedly pressured me into starting a Patreon, and that has become my hobby budget. Like that's like the Patreon funds and usually the Twitch stuff I get because I essentially get two checks every month from one from Twitch and one from Patreon, and Twitch stuff is paying down a credit card that I pretty much maxed out when I started streaming some 7 years ago, buying equipment and stuff like that. And we've almost got that'll be paid off this year. So half of Twitch every time I get paid out from Twitch for the last like 4 years or so. Half of that goes towards paying down that credit card. So we pay our normal monthly payment every month, and then every month we make a second payment, which is out of this. And so that I'm not going to talk about what that balance is at. But
normally that would be a really random tangent, but it actually ties in nicely to our topic.
Yeah, right. And then on the other side of things, then when I get the Patreon payout, that's just like pure fun money for like buying hobby. And I just pre-ordered Curse City. No one talked me out of it, so like it was like I was already talked into it, and So I did that. Yeah, big debt payoff. I'm really proud of that personally. So we have 3 essentially financial experts. They're going to teach me, and by teaching me and giving me advice, you, dear audience, will learn a little bit. So I'm just going to start at the top. I haven't heard from Coach in a little bit. Coach, why don't you give me a little bit of your background outside of AOS coaching on why you're the expert? No.
I don't even do any coaching, unlike these 40K coaches who want to take your money and coach you. No. So I have a YouTube channel called AOS Coach that people may know of. I've been in the hobby
They've never
for a
heard of it.
long time.
Never heard of it.
Probably never heard of it. Never heard of it. And a funny, interesting fact right now is I have probably been in banking for a long period of time. So I do have a financial background. This is not financial advice, people. Please consider this is general advice.
This is
your
anecdotes.
financial situation, your money that you generate, your expenses, and all that good stuff is not being considered here. But I think I'm quite a conscious buyer, despite all of the models. I'm quite savvy as well, so.
The SmackDown title is the best, though, personally. I think that's your best purchase behind you.
I mean, it's signed by Kurt Angle and signed by Mick Foley, so it's only appreciated in value. And it's the best wrestling title, right? It's the Winged Eagle. It's the best era of modern wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it's really important to reset. We're not giving anyone specific financial advice. This is anecdotal. We are telling stories about our experiences, and if you can find something useful in there, in general, by all means.
Well, it ties in nicely. I'm just looking at some of my YouTube chat comments at the moment, just from a previous video. And someone, like, I'm literally just pulling this up. It's just the first thing at the top of it says, it was like a start collecting box video. And then someone said, seeing how few points are in this box, my wallet is hating me for the friends who have gotten me into this. And I think that's a general feel that a lot of people think that this hobby can be quite expensive. And with a lot of Games Workshop releases, it can be easy to get on the treadmill, just spend, and we get in a position of the pile of potential where I just got grace bruise backing up, but I'm actually not completing my hobby, and it becomes more of an issue.
Right, this is that pile of shame we all talk about, right? That thing.
Yeah, yes. So I think being financially savvy and wise in thinking about things should play a part as opposed to just pure hype, which is why I haven't bought Curse City yet. Not because I don't want it, because I don't need it yet.
I am a weak easy mark for Games Workshop. All they have to do is throw undead in something, and my temptation automatically goes to 100, and I need someone to talk me down. Because if they don't, it's just like it's already in the cart.
But if it makes you feel any better and what people are wanting what I'm currently doing, I am building a Ossiarch Bone Reaper, which is a part of my Discord's Christmas in July. So somebody in my Discord is getting this Muppet painted up by me. So,
Ooh, a painted Ossiarch Bone Reaper. That sounds familiar.
Yeah. Who's getting it? That's enough about me. Let's go to somebody else.
Yeah, so Martin, why don't you give everyone a little bit of your background? They know you as this phenom of the hobby, but a little bit more on where finances of AOS kind of ties in.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think Coach is the only one in finance proper. Two of the guests are in enforcement and compliance. So that's a very different thing from financial advice. I'm a money laundering investigator for one of the largest financial institutions in the world. My job is either boring to talk about or very scary to talk about. And it's probably best to leave it at that. If people want to get more deets about specific things, of course non specifics related to individual cases or whatnot, they can reach out to me privately. But just as an umbrella sort of overview, every financial institution in America has to abide by the Bank Secrecy Act, and a bunch of other anti-money laundering investigative legislation. they have to have a department like mine. There was an episode of a series on Netflix called Dirty Money. Do not watch it while drinking; you will get mad.
Now you can't say something like that and not tell me why I will get
I'm about
mad.
to.
Okay.
No, I'm
Because
about to.
because Martin was in it, and that's how he funds his hobby, and he got busted. And Martin Orlando is actually a you know when cops like bust you and then like they put you in like somewhere else and change your name and your identity. That's why he's so hobby focused. Yeah, he's under witness protection.
Yeah.
CIA black sites. You're right. Anyway, there's an episode on that. I believe it's called Cartel Banks, when the government busted HSBC for not having proper controls and due diligence in place. Basically, they didn't ask questions when basically Hezbollah and the drug cartels in Mexico were setting up accounts and just like moving their money through traditional bank accounts in the United States under HSBC. And after they stopped that, it's basically people like me monitor transactions through financial institutions, making sure it's legit, and generally it is.
So you don't.
It's only.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm saying that's what I say. My job is either boring or scary. Usually, we don't find suspicious activity, but if we do, it's a lot of work.
So you're not the one who actually goes and physically breaks people's fingers for the bank's money back.
Thankfully not. And it's not that we're not getting the bank's money back. That would be fraud or merchant disputes.
Oh,
that's Chuck Moore's job. Why do you think he's got strength hammer?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of monitoring, due diligence. KYC, stuff like that. A lot of this stuff is publicly available information in terms of the terminology I use, like AML typologies, types of monetary instruments people use to try and
I hate that I know AML and KYC, and I hate that I know this on a hobby stream. Just
there we go.
Well, yeah, my brain is trying to solve the puzzle of how do we make finance fun, and I figured it out. It's just quipping the entire time in between talking about the finance. But real quick, Hesnake here dropped a Twitch Prime sub. Thank you so much. Speaking of economically viable or economically savvy decisions, using Twitch Prime, it's free and it pays me. So thank you. Hotspur gift subbing to Colorado AS. Enjoy the emotes and thanks for the gift. And G-Dead also dropping a tier 1 sub to Kernigat. Man, y'all are generous tonight. Thank you so much, everybody.
Because they think they'll get their money back listening to people like us.
I was going to go because it's Easter. It's Easter, and people are buying you a chocolate egg. That's
No, we don't talk about Easter. Easter is a son of a bitch of a holiday, and not for like any reasons because I find bunnies confusing as a species or anything like that. It's because it has the audacity to sometimes be on my birthday, and I cannot abide that. So this is not Easter weekend. This is my birthday weekend. My birthday is the same day. It has the decency to be the same day every single year. Easter is wrong here, not me.
So RantCast confirmed. Mephisto hates bunnies and hates Easter and hates children and eggs. Confirmed. Confirmed.
Okay. I'm on an okay basis with eggs and I love my children. So
G-Dad Twitch, clip that for us.
Very funny story about bunnies. I up in the country. One of my favorite meals is rabbit stew. I will admit that. Rabbit stew is awesome. Took my at that time 4-year-old autistic son to a pet store to go to the restroom. It was next to Toys R Us. We had just left. I'm like, we're not going back into that wild place. Let's go in here. He goes back towards the restroom, and on the way there's this pet area selling pets like guinea pigs, and he sees rabbits. And he looks at me. Then he looks at the employee and asks how much the rabbits are. And the employee tells him they were like $4 or $5 each. And he says, "Dad, you can buy a couple of these for rabbit stew tonight, can't you?" the look on that employee's face was priceless.
Oh my gosh. Like now that's the kind of place where they go back and there's a sign not for customer consumption. Like they have to hang a sign now all because of you. So while you're talking, why don't you tell people your background in finance?
My background is very mixed. Up until 2008, I was an electrician. Not known for their financial savvy.
They have math skills, as electricians must do
Yeah,
math.
you must have a lot of algebra skills
yeah.
because there's a lot of algebra in electrical.
Yeah, you can. That's adjacent to my field where I help put the electricity in the ground, and you can flip and kill people if you're not smart.
Yes, if you're not careful. I had a journeyman's license for 14 years.
Yeah.
But 2008 in America was a very tumultuous time. I lost my job. My job, my wife, my house, a lot. I lost a lot.
So you say you're from Texas?
5 times. What?
You're from Texas. This kind of tracks a little bit, you know, country music joke.
I know my life is a country song.
Yeah.
Anyway, I went back to school and I got a degree in finance, and I am now currently a audit manager for my county. And what my job is to make sure that elected officials and their employees are spending the money that they collect in taxes correctly. Not only that, is that all of the money they collect is collected correctly and applied correctly. So when that tax bill comes in for your property taxes, you are going to pay it, and it's going to be put on your account. It's not going to go into somebody else's pocket. When you go in and pay your speeding ticket, it's going to go on your account so that you don't go to jail.
So you make sure that like the money goes where it's supposed to, essentially, without any funny business, and you make sure that like people in power are kind of held in check a little bit. You're making sure that they're not.
That is correct. Because the people in power, elected officials like to think that they can do their own thing, and for the most part, they can't.
So they can't fly their girlfriend.
I also have to make sure that they do their things correctly.
Yeah, so they can't fly their underage girlfriend on an airplane somewhere with tax money. No, okay.
No, you can't do that. There are
that
bills
was a current events joke.
Whenever
everyone.
you want to
I'm
buy something,
I know.
When you want to buy something, you have to go through this entire purchasing act. There are laws to buy your pens, and you have to follow them. You can't just go out to the local store. You have to actually have a contract with a company in order to buy your pens. You can't just go to Office Depot.
I remember working with a executive assistant, and one of the things that happens on a corporate credit card, like when you go to like a strip club or something, they'll always charge the transaction as like a shoe warehouse. So like the EA's got really good on tracking to see where the shoe warehouse is, because like $300 on shoes, it makes sense for an executive, but
that's not an expensible thing for the county.
Amazing.
Not quite something you can charge back to your organization. So not to say that people were, but it was something that I remember training to look at what a transaction record came up as. So,
I just saw. Go ahead. Sorry, finish off.
No, just like for anyone who's planning on going to a strip club, just ask them maybe before you pay cash or card, what will this transaction come up with on my statement? And if it's like shoes, you might want to have a decent pair of shoes as well. So like you don't have dirty trainers. Like, where are these $300 shoes?
I saw I think it was a viral meme. It could have actually just been someone's picture from their phone in my Facebook feed, but I think it was a viral meme. And it was a picture of like a sign that says, for an extra like $1 or for an extra like $3.45 or extra $3.25, we will make the charge say whatever you think it should say to your wife or whatever. And I'm just like, like there's got to be like here's an app. Here's your $1 million app idea. Is some app out there similar to like a PayPal or like a Google Pay, where like it switches what the transaction is. Like they take their fee when you pay from this, and then that's the charge.
Yeah, I'm going to omit certain things just so I don't get fired.
I was going to say Mark looks so uncomfortable. Maybe we should talk about Warhammer.
No. I was ready to say this thing because this only came up in an email. Like I want to say either last week or this past week, of like what actually OnlyFans bills are showing up on people's credit cards. Like the actual merchant name that it's like actually like transacting as, and we're using it to create some sort of typology demographic information to look at risk. Because we have audit, we have risk management, and we have coach would be, what would you describe, like, how would you describe like what you did in finance previously?
What I currently do, I'm a learning development manager, so I work on basically making sure that people do the right thing, both making sure that customers are having the best quality conversations to ensure there's a genuine need for a product. We're not just like stitching them up with some incentive. I've worked on behalf of different products.
It does have a degree of risk management, is basically
what I'm looking. Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm currently building an induction program around risk. So, like, that's
more what we do. Like instead of just like you know
the boots,
making buckets of money.
Speaking of the $400 shoes, kicker. Nah, that's not Warhammer. That's the cable bill.
Unfortunately enough, these are $300 shoes in Texas.
Oh, there you go.
They're everywhere.
I'm just meeting myself.
She did. I have to go see one. Oh, go ahead. What was that, Coach?
No. For career aspirations. I'm sorry, Coach. Go ahead. Go right ahead.
I was just saying it's lunchtime, so instead of turning your stream into a mukbang stream, I'm just going to mute myself.
You know, I started a whole hour late for you. It had nothing to do with my life.
I was meant to start at 10 o'clock my time. It turned out to 11:45. So we are in lunch streaming. This is what happens at a Zoom meeting when someone tries to call me into a Zoom meeting. I eat on camera. I eat an apple, and I prove a point.
You know, the thing is there's people who are into it. Is the problem? Like, it's not. There's like people out there who are just like gonna dismiss it by like looking at like like Soren's beautiful face or something like that. But there are people who are like they have this thing full screened right now and they're intently staring at your face as you eat.
All I know is that there's a content creator called The Right Opinion, and he put out a 4.5-hour video about some drama over one mukbang streamer, and that's when I said I'm never going near this with a 150-mile pole.
I'm being really conscious that something is going to get into my beard, and I'm eating my rice paper roll now, but I have a banh mi or a Vietnamese roll, and I know this crusty bread is going to go all through my beard. And then the question is, do I just keep talking to you with beard bread, or do I actually clean myself up?
I think that's an
chat.
In the moment
You let me know.
Yeah, chat.
Chat,
we'll get a poll going. Should he clean the beard or not? You chew that slow, Coach, and enjoy it.
Anyway,
my thought is no, but clean shaven. So
thank you, Kurt Eggett.
I aspire, at least in the relatively near future, to get to some place where Soren is, like maybe moving into the public sector at some point. I would like to do that, because I think that's like the next logical step for me. Because I right out of college, I was lucky enough to be hired by TD Bank to be in their fraud investigations department. I was there until they no longer had a fraud investigations department. They completely restructured how they did it, and whatever the opposite of outsourcing is, because it's Canadian bank, TD Bank, and they kind of like compacted their operations to zero, and then reopened a brand new fraud office, partially in India, but like 75% of it, I believe, is in Canada. And so I was basically out on a limb, and then I started a job at the bank I'm working for now, and I've been there since January of 2017. So, yeah.
I mean, it's clearly funding your AOS hobby pretty decently, and I think that's really the important part. So
that, and also,
Oh,
I was about to say, buying only one army every 2 years also helps.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that's where, I think I'll go to Coach for this one. I mean, as I see Age of Sigmar, like getting into Age of Sigmar. I mean, I had a gentleman on my YouTube comments today. Found my stream by way of Heywo because that's how most people tend to. So he was commenting on YouTube and he's like, do I? Basically, he's just probing me like, should I get into Age of Sigmar? Was really like the big question, like sort of the core question around a lot of the comments he was making, and he commented on 3 different videos. Really good conversation. And he basically like, and I see this on Facebook. I see it on the old TGA forums. The question I see the most often is you have people. Yeah, I can turn myself up. Sorry. You have people. You have people. Hesitant to get into Age of Sigmar, and I think for good reason. They hear it's plastic crack. They hear that it's a very expensive hobby, and it's hard to tell someone. For me, it's really hard to say, yeah, man, spend money. And so really the line I tend to take is you really need to like kind of, what are your expectations is usually like the very, very first thing I kind of answer their question with a question. It's like, what are your expectations? What are you expecting to get out of Age of Sigmar? And from there it's like, okay, well, you've done that sort of cursory, what do I expect? You've checked the boxes, and now it's like, I think financing starts at picking your army.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I want to do a direct comparison. Okay.
Okay.
So you're saying Age of Sigmar. I'm going to say video gaming. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say you're a console gamer. You're going to spend $500 up front for your console. And then you're going to spend $60 for your game. And you're not just going to buy one game. I don't know a single person on the planet that owns a console that only owns one game, including my darling, and she only plays 3 games, but she owns 3 games. So you're going to get your $500 console. Okay, well, there's your starter box. You're going to get $60 games.
Mm-hmm.
Call it one a month. If it takes you a whole month to go through a game from start to finish and play it as much as you want, $60 a month. Well, when you take that money and compare it to Age of Sigmar, you have an Army Plus. You probably can get 2 armies with the starter box and $60 a month spent on your boosters for whatever you're going to get. Your 2 characters, your box of hex raids, or your box of sequitors, or what have you. You can get 1 or 2 armies for the same cost. So cost should not be the limiting factor for Age of Sigmar. Not as far as, oh my God, it's so expensive. Because if you take it easy, you budget yourself, you take your time, it's not all that expensive, not compared to other hobbies. And that gaming is a very common one. You get car guys, you get even fishing. Yes, there are people that go out and get their fishing license for $25 here in Texas, and then your $20 Zebco, and goes and sits at the river. There are those people. Mm-hmm. But there are bass boats all over the place as well.
Right, and not to mention the cost of a boat or keeping good cycle rotation of like fishing poles and lures and sinkers and stuff like that. Like, yeah.
So even common hobbies, and that's what you have to think of this is hobby. Common hobbies can get really, really. You go to a front, a top of the line computer, you're looking at $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a computer. Plus the cost of the games.
Mountain bikes are $3,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So the cost is not your limiting factor. What is most people's limiting factor is you can't even play a game. You cannot play a single game until you put your models together.
Well, I think time is the most precious. Yeah, go ahead.
You want to go in and you want to play the game today. You want to play it now. I go and buy my console and I buy my Call of Duty. Okay, I might have a couple of hours to update, but I can play it today.
Yeah.
Not necessarily going to happen with Age of Sigmar.
Well, even with Magic the Gathering, which I think is one of the most commonly compared, like sort of cross comparisons in like the nerdly vices, because tabletop. It's a collectible card game. Like Magic the
Usually
Gathering
available in the same store.
available in the same store, right? Like Magic the
Yep.
Gathering, if you're playing standard, it has a little bit of a sunk cost fallacy. It seems cheap to get into, like doing booster drafts or whatever. Like it seems cheap, but to stay in the standard rotation is going to cost you a lot more than keeping an Age of Sigmar army updated, first and foremost. But the thing about Magic the Gathering is like, okay, my deck cycles or rotates. I just like click a button a few times on a computer screen. It takes me as long as shipping to have my deck ready to go. And furthermore, I can goldfish. Like, time is the precious commodity here in Age of Sigmar, which I think is something that we don't budget for as well when we're going into building an army, or like when people are considering jumping into the game. It's not just financial, it's time, that temporal constraint. Like, the pile of shame we kind of mentioned a couple times earlier on, like having the stack of models, like me getting Cursed Cities. I know it's going to be a while before I paint models in that Cursed City box. It's going to sit. I know for a fact it's going to sit. I've got 3 Blood Bowl teams to paint, which isn't too bad. That's not a heinous time sink. That's 16 models a piece about. That's not a heinous time sink. I can bang that out in probably about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I'm not a particularly fast painter. But like the other stuff jumping in front of the queue, and now I have these. I have multiple armies. They're all in various states of completion. I have a board I want to put together. I think something people need to be more conscientious of when they get into Age of Sigmar really is the time limiter. Because I want you to play Age of Sigmar, and I will in an LGS, I will play against your unpainted models, especially when you're starting out. That's setting expectations. That's like, hey, what type of game are you looking? Oh, you're just getting into Age of Sigmar. Oh, cool. Like, yeah, I'll totally play a game with you. Especially if I'm helping you figure out what purchases to make, right? I've got about 200 points in my list. That's flex. I don't know if I want to buy this hero or like beef up this unit. Oh yeah, throw some empty bases on the table. Let's go. Like I will play a game with you that way, especially if you're making an investment decision. I really tend to avoid the like monetary discussion when people are asking me for advice. Coach, I don't know if you're chewing or hanging on to a thought there. Both.
It's a bit of both. All the pate, my chopped liver and hot sauces are starting to drip out. So, you both raised some really good points, and I think the premise that I would start with is value is a perception. What one person values is completely different to another. And if I asked you to maybe reflect when you go to the local grocery store and you make your regular weekly, fortnightly shopping that you might do you always buy the cheapest product on the shelf? Do you buy the most expensive? Do you buy the brand name? What does your purchase look like? And when I think about this hobby, it's not about just the upfront cost. It's not just about my army is worth $1,000. There's a lot of factors that come into play. It could be the amount of time I get to enjoy my hobby. It's the fact that in my hobby shelf, I still have models that I bought 20 years ago. And should I sell them, there is value. And I could probably sell them for almost as much as I paid for them when I first bought the hobby. So when you think about this being expensive, well, Soren made a really good point. You could buy yourself a PlayStation 5. I've been playing Assassin's Creed, and I played it for over 100 hours. I think I'm at about 120 hours now. So did I get value out of my gold class or upgraded video game? Absolutely. For some other people, they go, nah, I'll just buy standard. But Warhammer is my primary hobby. I'll play video games secondary. I don't play Magic. I don't have. Look, I go to the gym and I do other things, but I don't have any other. I don't have a lot. I don't buy comics. I don't buy cards.
Your entertainment dollar is spoken for, is what you're saying. Your entertainment
100%.
dollar.
That's literally right. Yeah, 100%. From an entertainment point of view, that's where I'm putting my resources. What I'm not trying to do, and maybe the risk is that I want to play Magic. I want to buy my Spider-Man comics. I want to go and do all the nerddom stuff. And I'm just raising the level of debt. So it's about what you're going to get at the hobby, what you're asking from the hobby, how often are you going to play. There's so much that comes in that ultimately creates value. And
Right.
I think that's the question.
Right. Well, I said to this gentleman on the internet who was asking me. It's in my mind because it was recent, and it's a question I see a lot. I said that if you're honestly asking me, to tell you to play Age of Sigmar or not, like I don't want to be that guy. But what I did say was, you have to calculate in the actual build into like that sort of like assessment of the game. Building and painting, like we're not all going to be able to afford someone to commission our stuff. You have to factor that in. For some people, building and painting is a negative. They don't like it. They want to get it out the way and get to the table 3-color standard as fast as possible.
You don't need every paint on the shelf yet. You don't need to buy Winsor and Newton brushes. You don't need an airbrush. And I think that's the trap where people just go, right, I want everything early.
$10 brushes, baby. $1 a piece. Let's go.
It's like when you go for a swim. You put your toes in the water first. You don't dive head first. But Martin, I want to get you involved in this conversation, Martin, because you're doing Lumineth. Lumineth are probably as expensive as my army, the Sons of Behemat.
Yeah.
I want to know where you're at with all this.
Yeah, Kicker actually very specifically asked, how did Martin Orlando decide on what to buy for LRL?
Right.
I think both these questions can go hand in hand.
So like for the new stuff, like I generally bought like one of everything, and now it's looking like, well, I mean, like this is like my passion project. I'm the High Elves guy. I've been waiting for High Elves since the death of the old world. They're basically back. Whatever caveats you want to attach to that for your personal opinion on how they look. To me, it's basically High Elves. I'm happy with that. And over time, I plan to paint basically everything in the army to have like flexibility. Regardless of how often I use certain units like on the periphery. And we were talking about time. I am painting some Spearmen on the table right now. Doesn't matter what they look like. You'll see them on Instagram soon enough. I am painting for an event in August. That will be my first event since like post-COVID. And
what's the event in August?
Summer Slaughter. That's the one that Sean and Jared have been talking about.
And you're running an event, right? Coming up?
Yes. I am running the Atlantic City Open. I'm not playing in that.
When's that?
That is June, I believe, the 11th to the 13th in Atlantic City.
Oh, there you go. See,
Yeah,
I had you, Drew. Oh, sorry. Continue.
Yeah. But like, I would like to make sure that like, so my personal goal right now, is the first outing of the fully painted army is going to be Summer Slaughter. I'll have the display board ready for Armies on Parade-ish, or if we do Armies on Parade in person, that is. I'm pretty sure we will now at this point. Have it ready for Du Bois in November, and then have something extra special for when we're all back together at Adepticon early 2022. So I generally like, when Wave 1 came out, it was mostly the core troops. So it was like buying, I hope Games Workshop gets into a sort of design space in the future where all battle line is just good. Like if you're asking a new player, where do they start? I would like to be comfortable in telling someone, just start by painting troops. Like if you have extra troops, they're not going to go to waste in the future. It's like, and that's not true for everything, but it's true for most things. It's like extra spearmen, extra archers, they're not going to go to waste. And everything else, like I buy one of it. If I use more, I'll buy more of it. Mm-hmm. But like I don't buy as many armies as like the average bear. I do not dabble. Like I
you go all in on an army basically.
Yeah, I did my Vampire Vikings army. I did my first sketch and like kind of put it away for about like 2.5 years. Like I remember at LVO 2017, I was like, what if Manfred was a Viking? And like I just drew it, like not on a napkin, but like on hotel stationery, like with a pen. I'm not even that great at drawing, but I like had enough to have an idea of it. Mm-hmm. And then I got lost by Stormcast for like 2 years. And then after that, it's like I was like, what if I just did something new? Then I did that.
See, I do, like I'm pretty devoutly committed to the thing, but I've found that like most hobbyists in Warhammer, they're kind of always buying something. If it's the army that they love, if they're like where you're sort of singularly focused on the army you're working on, like you'll be buying the next box of heroes for it and the next box of troops, and like we're always buying something. I just find what we're buying moves around as in Warhammer.
Yeah. No, I get that. I think, I mean, like, we're all different. We're all going to have different rationales. I would argue probably the average hobbyist likes a little of everything, even if they don't end up playing even at all. Sometimes they buy it and paint it because they love just like the spectacle and the cornucopia that is sort of like the Games Workshop sort of catalog, and that's okay. But like for people who are looking to get started, I think picking and choosing like what army, like it might involve watching some YouTube videos. It might be as simple as just like taking some time going back and forth to the store, looking at stuff online, maybe even looking at players' armies like on social media or Google. Like
Unbelievable!
Age of Sigmar's now been around long enough that you can type in to Google Images just Stormcast Eternals armies, for example, and you'll see all of this inspiration completely for free. And you might land on something where it's like, I want to do something like that. As long as you know it within you, like you feel that you could stay committed to a project like that, and then maybe by piece, build that Warcry warband, build that 500 points, build that 1,000 points. Sometimes there's like slow grow leagues at stores when there are events to entice hobbyists to. Like, you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, there's
like,
a couple different ways to get into it, and I do think Age of Sigmar, intent wise, I liked what Soren said earlier on about like when you get into the PlayStation, like you buy your machine, your PS5, your $500, and then you're buying a $60 game here, a $60 game here. That's a really good analog for buying a Start Collecting box and then buying a box here and buying a box there. I really do think this game is intended to be spaced out over time. And in terms of like actual like sort of market analytics, there is a notion of something called the entertainment dollar, and this is an amount of money the average individual is willing to spend paycheck to paycheck, just literally burn it and throw it away. It's about $60 is what they've worked it out to be per paycheck, and that increases, and goes down. Like essentially, people will find a way to pay for their entertainment, in any given financial bracket.
Always budget about 10% of your paycheck for what I've always called running money. That is your entertainment, your going out to eat for lunch, your coffee in the morning, or what have you. You need to budget that. Don't budget just your bills.
There you go. That's Lulu would agree with you. She's the frugal, gifted one. El Poly and Diablo Gunder, thank you so much for the follows there. You were talking about to reset real quick, Martin. You said there's free inspiration. I'm not a strong hobbyist, and I have one of my Mortek guards sitting here with me. Mengel actually shared his crematorians, and I really liked what he did with his crematorians. And so
there we go.
I took it, and I just changed it to my color scheme, which is I wanted the black, the purple, and the green with bone highlights. And I mean, I didn't execute it as perfectly as his, but I got the little glow in the bones, like,
Oh yeah.
And the thing is like I know I'm not a strong hobbyist, but I still let somebody who is a strong hobbyist inspire me, right? And he gave his guide like it was a Warhammer Warcom. I'm like, that is literally like again, his colors were different from mine. I'm like, that's literally what I was thinking. Like that's what I was envisioning for my bone daddies. I wanted black skeletons, kind of like Necrons, right? But I wanted this like this like TMNT Secret of the Ooze glow, because I keep making jokes that they're skeletons that took the Super Shredder serum, right? Like they have the ooze. So of course they're going to glow green and purple. I remember I was talking, I think it was you and Haywo around this time, and Christian Ware was very pointedly telling me not to paint my models purple. He was very upset at me.
And he's upset at me for not having any ruse in my list, so it's fine.
Yeah, and it was like like don't paint armor purple. It shouldn't be purple. It should be metallic. It should be this. And like I remember this like big conversation. And I'm like, it was like I remember this liberating moment when I was concerned about things being the color they were supposed to be for my like initial couple armies, and then after that I'm like, fuck it, it's purple. Like, and it's just like being
Yeah.
liberated
This
to have
yeah.
my vision and just kind of lean into it.
Every hobbyist is going to find something different. Like just a good example to tie back to current events. One of the Warhammer community team members, a good friend of mine named Nick Baton, his thing. He's been with Games Workshop. If I say a number, it's probably longer than that. And one of his passion things is all things Ultramarines. So they do their hobby roundup stream twice a week, where they just sit for an hour, or I think this time it was 2 hours. And they just poll people's. They ask for permission to poll people's stuff, like from through hashtags. They just dredge Twitter and Instagram. And this one, it was the end of March. Instead of March Madness, it was March from a Crag. And it was just 2 hours of showing off people's well-painted Ultramarines. Ultramarines not only are the poster child, but they have like the most lore out of any Space Marine chapter, down to like the military museum style, like the chevron on this shoulder pad with this battle marking indicates that they've been on this crusade. That's like
Yeah, 40K is a game I've heard of.
It is
this military
the
precision.
only army they've ever painted the entire chapter for.
Ultramarines.
I'm trying to get to like just someone's hook into how they justify their hobby.
Yeah.
In that, like this is the most true to book lore that people generally, I think, aspire to. Where it's like, not only do I want to make sure all of them have the right colors, but they have the right veteran markings, campaign badges, stuff like that. These little details that some of them don't even have the skill to paint, but they aspire to and exalt that level of accuracy to the book lore in their miniatures. And then there are people like Ricky Smith or the Realms at War guys, where it's like, I'm going to turn this children's toy into a giant Skaven death machine, and I'm going to completely deck out the inside. I'm going to transform it into this utter monstrosity of imagination that no one could have ever fathomed. And it's okay to sit somewhere in between, because as Soren said, like this is a hobby. Whatever hooks you, don't let someone else kind of like just poke at you for having your hook be maybe a little bit different from whatever you imagine the normal to be. Like I went for my Stormcast, I painted Celestial Vindicators. I wanted that true to lore sort of faction, even though there's not really much lore written about them, period. To Viking vampires, which don't exist, not even in the kits. I had to make all of that from scratch.
Right.
And then with my Lumineth, I've been working on the backstory, the kit bashing and stuff since before they announced that Lumineth even existed. I imagined I was going to have to be just like at events at the bottom table, just like, here's my Grand Alliance order. I brought back High Elves in a weird way because Games Workshop wouldn't do it. And then they decided to validate my fandom by bringing High Elves back. I'm sorry, it's not in the way that everyone appreciates, but
I think that's mostly. I think we're good now. Mission accomplished. I think we can hang the banner.
Like, yeah, like their hats.
Well, I know. I just want to, and I'm saying one thing there. It's like, this is almost weirdly the army of my dreams when they showed off on Instagram before the new stuff was out. The Swordmasters unit champion looked almost identical to a conversion I made when I was in college, like 7 or 8 years ago. I even found the old.
Do you have the side by side of it on the Instas?
Oh yeah. I posted it on Twitter, and I was like,
check that out.
This is beyond like.
Yeah.
This is yes. This is a hard yes.
I'm fairly convinced that I might actually be James Workshop, or at least when I'm having my fits of insomnia and I'm supposed to be sleeping in like a Tyler Durden-esque manner, like I am, like I become James Workshop, or I've been astral projecting my mind into James Workshop because the releases this year have been like uncannily the stuff that exists in my mind's eye. You know, when
Yes.
OBR came out, I'm like, this is an army made for me. It was like, was Games Workshop actually tapping my like lines? Were they in my house? Do they actually watch my show? No, that's the least likely one. Clearly, they infiltrated my house.
Well, this is now 2 years that you and Vince have gotten dream stuff.
Yeah, this is crazy. Are we James Workshop? Are we the Gestalt that is James Workshop?
Yeah, possibly.
Because he got his Smash Daddies, I got Bone Daddies, and now I'm getting vampires. Like, I don't know. Like, do the credits roll when I finally paint the last Soulblight model? Like, is that like I paint like my OBR? My pile of shame is severely diminished. I've changed my camera angles, but my pile of shame used to be right here on this corner of my shelf. It's it's 2 boxes right now, and then I've got Slanesh lurking down here behind me. That has actually grown, but my OBR pile of shame is basically gone now. 3 boxes, and it's like,
Is it sad that I can name every model that I have not painted yet?
I don't think
And I
that's sad.
cannot buy any more until I paint those 66 models.
You know what? That's the thing. Like, Drew Mouse, you're probably not wrong. The credits might roll if I finish Soulblight. I already know the answer. I'm just gonna sell my army and buy all new stuff, or paint over the oldest models, and make them look as good as my newest models.
No, never repaint those. That
No?
is your timeline of your improvement.
Yeah.
That is what drives you to improve even more.
Yeah, really.
I have my Lord of the Rings stuff when I was like 14.
So I'll just buy like 60. Like, I'll just, by the end of it, I'll have just like literally 1,000 more tech guard. Like, and
you'll look at your first one and you'll look at your last one, and you will see the massive improvement you've had, and that will drive you to make that massive improvement even more.
See, after Soul,
but see, I would disagree. If we're talking about finances here, then it would make sense to own 1,000 more tech guard.
I agree.
It would make sense to strip them, go buy secondhand models, strip them, repaint them, maybe keep some of them. But I appreciate your sentiment on what you're saying. Don't repaint your models. But if we're talking financial here, go onto a buy and sell. Go learn how to strip. Go learn how to repaint over models.
Can you strip plastic? Is that a thing you can?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. I strip plastic. You can strip resin. You can strip metal, and it's not as hard as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are getting into this hobby, or if you want to expand your forces and you don't have the finances to be going out and buying brand new kits all the time, like go. I have an ultrasonic cleaner. Cost me, I don't know, $50, $60, and I can strip a model in an hour. You can get isopropyl alcohol to strip models. You can use Dettol to strip models. So financially,
and incidentally enough,
I've got Simple Green as well, but financially, it makes sense to strip models.
Right. Well, see, that's where I have a plan. I think this ties into like finance and budgeting. I essentially have a hobby plan. I knew last year it kind of got thrown out the window. I've lamented it multiple times on the show. Where I'm gonna finish OBR here for PACA. Then by Adepticon, I'm going to have my display board done. Then for Midwest Meltdown, I'm going to have the second build of my Ossiarch Bone Reaper's army, which was my Catacross plus all my Mortis Praetorians build, basically. Because, again, I knew when it came out that as soon as I saw the fever pitch of people complaining Petrifex Elite was getting a nerf, whether it deserved it or not. So I was prepared for that. And so I'm like, okay, I'll have Catacross, because by the time I paint all of this stuff, make a display board, I'll be ready to paint Catacross. I'll be good enough to paint Catacross. And then, I had this whole hobby plan for, a whole year, but I had tied it to events. And when all the events went away, my whole hobby plan just disappeared. But now I have a new hobby plan going forward. It's in the works right now. I was being a little misleading about my shame pile. This is part of it right now. So that's 2 Keepers of Secrets, some Bliss Barbs, a Fane, Sigvald, and then I have 2 halves of a Shadows and Pain box, and a Start Collecting. It's a much
what
bigger.
you can do to help on your hobby track?
What's that?
You can watch AOS Coach's display board video.
Oh, there you go. And I have 2 display boards to make as well. So no, my hobby goals have shifted. Plus Soul Blight. I knew when Soul Blight was officially going to be a thing. I'm like, clear the calendar, like sweep everything off my desk. Like I'm making room for this army. So after I get Soul Blight, I will. This comment has moved away from us a little bit, but Drew Mouse, I will dream up a new human army based on Order of Vizier for you. That is, I'll do that for the fans because I have what I need. I have what I want. From there, I'm just gonna live on. I'm just gonna alternate playing vampires and bone daddies every other event, and then busting out the Slanesh every like sort of third event or maybe every sixth event. Huh? Play that for teams. Do some stuff with Slanesh. So I'm looking forward to like I foresee a track for having all my stuff completed, and it's never really complete when you're in Warhammer. You're always painting something, and for me, it's that recycling, grabbing my oldest models, maybe grab a favorite one out of each unit so that I do have those snapshots, and then sort of repainting them and getting them up to my new standard. That'll in a year, 2 years, 3 years. When I've been painting that long, you're going to get better by sort of failing purposefully, right? The Bob Ross thing. Fail as quickly as possible, right?
Well, it's also goes back to if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. It's having a plan in place. I'm going to spend X amount of dollars. I'm going to run it for X amount of events. I need X amount of models. Clearly, the meta and things are going to shift, but it's about having a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's so easy to overspend on a budget, or you're buying things and then you look at the buy and sells on Facebook, and how many people flip an army because they bought something they didn't want, and then you're reaping in a discount from them. So, it's having a plan, and to Martin's point, he had a plan. I'm not going to buy a new army, or I'm going to use this army until Lumineth comes out. And I'm going to be very purposeful on buying things like Battle Line, converting or using things I've already got, buying things and slowly expanding.
Yeah. Like I have been painting for the same event since last June. And I'm still painting for that event. It's now coming up sooner rather than later, thankfully. But I'm not going to buy new Lumineth until I know what my list looks like after that. Even if it's ultimately not as competitive as maybe some builds, it's just like I keep it lean. Most of the stuff I actually spend more money now on scenery than I do miniatures, but that's just because I'm trying to run events. That's just I think there's a separate sort of untold story about how expensive running Warhammer events actually is, because you're not running them to make a profit. But one of the things I just minimize like how much I actually spend on model kits themselves, because they take up a lot of space too. Like your pile of potential has to go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean,
I don't have a basement like you Midwest guys, or I'm sorry, Texas guys. What is this basement?
Do Texans have basements? I didn't think you had basements either. Yeah. No, they have sheds. They have like extra sheds.
Okay, you have an extra shed on your property.
Yeah.
I have 3 extra sheds on my property.
Yeah.
Actually.
See, the third one's actually the extra one. The 2 are necessary.
I have one for is a wood shop. I have one for my lawn equipment, and I have one actual storage.
Well, the UK doesn't have basement for an entirely different reason. See, the entire UK is just built on top of fucking graveyards, as far as the eye can see.
And also very soft soil, but that's different.
Hotspur, I have a basement. It's clutch. I have a basement and an attic, and both are storage. No.
Now, I would like to say, where with coaches planning, I'd like to show you just a little bit of what I went through when I was choosing an army.
Oh, look at this. Whoa, buddy. Let's see, we have is this a spreadsheet?
I have to open it on my phone.
It's
this
kind of blurry.
is me sharing my screen of my
zoom in-
Excel
zoom in.
spreadsheet.
You need to zoom in a touch.
Oh,
So
sorry. Zoom in,
control
brother.
scroll.
Yeah,
I see
zoom
it
in
now.
very much.
Yeah, we
I'm
can't.
gonna drink more water.
Let's see, how do I zoom this
Control
down?
and scroll. You hold control and then scroll.
Oh, I'm trying to scroll in on
Yeah, there you go.
on the
Yeah, there
Discord. All right, so this is my hobby time estimations.
Mhm.
So hobby time in hours, how long I think it would take me to do various model kits. So
How did you come to these values out of curiosity?
time,
Yeah.
I've been painting for 20 years.
Right, but like at some point you had to, what if, I'm a new player? I don't necessarily know how long it takes me to paint something yet.
No, for a new player, it's going to be different values. So these are all my estimated values for my personal time painting. So I figured for 10 Marauders, it would take me 8 hours. That is painting base coat, washes, waiting for those washes to dry, and then doing highlights and just minimal basing. So this is my minimum estimated hobby time in hours.
I love that Drew Mouse is like the moment you realize you don't take hobbies seriously enough.
So this is one of the ways this is probably the my base for when I'm choosing stuff. And then I've got this spreadsheet. I've looked at.
You got to zoom in again. We can't see anything.
Yeah.
There you go.
So there's a lot here. So I looked at 5-0 list for London GT 2019, rank 1 Army, Daughters of Cain. This is their list. This is how much it costs in US dollars. And just because I could, I looked up pounds, Canadian dollars, Australian dollars, and then added my hobby time.
Can we just take a moment to appreciate how much this hobby costs in Australia? Like near over double what it costs double the amount of dollary dues as it does the British pound.
Yes, but in saying that, I guarantee you our livable minimum wage is a lot higher than the rest of the world.
Right, and you
by the
guys
way,
have
this is
garbage-free
2019.
healthcare too, don't you? Lame
I
free
mean, you know,
healthcare.
like our minimum wage is only like $20 an hour, and I don't have to use a what's it called, a GoFundMe if I need an ambulance. But that is a whole different show.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that you get to have
2,500
events
for an
right
ambulance.
now.
That's what it cost my county to ambulance somebody to the hospital.
Yeah.
And we just had like a massive county fair. We had the Royal Easter show yesterday, so we've got events coming up. But
Grrr. I hope you understand the humor there.
Like, I'm so sick of
Atlantic City Open, June 11th to 13th, New Jersey.
Well, I think, go on, Coach. Say what you're gonna say.
No, just like I'm so sick of hearing about the because it's not comparing apples to apples. I think that's what we got to really appreciate it. Yes, the product is the product, right? But I guarantee you, there's a whole bunch of additional costs in shipping alone. It takes me 20 hours to fly to America. It takes me 24 hours to get to England, compared to you can get a flight from New York to London in 9.
Yeah.
So there you go. So like you can't compare apples with apples. It's not a digital distribution model.
Right. Well, the thing is like you also nailed that kind of early on. One, the value is a perception, and part of that's going to go into like you forming a perception is like what can you afford? What's worth your money and your time? And in Australia, you have more free time than an American and a higher livable wage than an American. So like your free time and like it's not at the premium, like it says, yeah, this is how much it costs me in the US, but I'm about to start pulling down 60-hour work weeks again, and that's not counting what I do on my for RantCast and writing and my family. Like I can spend this tiny amount, like a smaller amount of money on models, but like time I can never make up. Like I can't have the extra time, and yeah, so
And I think that's key. Like when you start looking at the value of a commissioned painter, is you're not buying someone to paint the army. You're buying the time for not only that, but
yeah.
to have painted models on the table earlier. It's paying back. It's allowing you to do other things, maybe play more games, spend more time with your family. It's what you're getting from your dollar.
Mm-hmm.
But this is cool, Soren. By the way, I have nothing. I have no sheet like this at all. I don't take it nearly as seriously as you do.
Well, Soren has a
but
quote.
I think for me, yeah, go on.
Do you know Soren's quote? I'm gonna let you say it.
Oh,
you go ahead.
It's all I do is paint. like he's like
I have over 13,000 points of painted models. Painted. I've played 9 games. 3 of which against my kids.
By the way, I think that is, I mean, that's nothing to feel ashamed of. I think the vast majority of people get their value out of this game in the hobby and literally everything we do around the gaming. I gamed at a really good clip there for a year and a half, right? Like I was just tournament pretty much every month, grinding games with like Haywo and like a couple like the locals every week. Like I was gaming. And even so, when you talk about a game that takes about 3 hours to play, there's only so many hours in the week you can fit in those games. Painting is something you can have. Shoutouts to Travis. Like you can have your hobby desk set up, ready to go for you. When you get home, paint, boom, get into it. I think it's very important that when you assess the value of Age of Sigmar, you think about the hobby. I am not to the caliber of hobbyist anyone is on the screen with me right now. But when I get home from my shitty 60-hour work week and I grab a box of Mortek Guard, it's not just a brand thing when I talk about how much I like the Ossiarch Bone Reaper's army. Like, for a spell there was nothing more cathartic between November and January of that year when they came out, when I was getting just hammered on at work. I had switched to a new company. They weren't sending help to my area. I'm the only person who does my job in a town with a population of 55,000 people. The only person who handles the 4 infrastructures I handle. The only one. Every other person who does a job similar to me for a different company has at least 4 people that do what I do to spread out the city. Coming home, putting together a box of Mortek Guard, they go together like a dream where they hide the seams on these guys. Like it was that catharsis. Like it's $60 for 20 Mortek Guard. That is exactly a video game price in America. $60 retail for a AAA full retail game. I got far more hours out of 20 Mortek Guard, and that's not even assuming that I have played how many games I get to play. I can play these ad nauseum into infinity. For as long as I'm alive, I can play these guys. And, well, until they get retired and stuff. Like, things happen. Nothing's forever.
Here's a little story for you. My first army, which was the Empire, so it's what you now know as the Cities of Sigmar, well, at least the only human side of the Cities of Sigmar. I played that from 4th edition all the way up to 8th edition, and then I continued playing the Empire in Age of Sigmar for the first 18 months. So that's 20 years. I played one army for 20 years. So just because a new army comes out doesn't mean you have to go buy it. Just because you're playing an army for 1 year doesn't mean you've got to turn it over with new year, new army. You don't have to get sucked into it. I love my Empire, and I never.
Well, let Coach finish, Soren, and then you can jump in.
I never got tempted to jump outside of the Empire. Yeah, I might pick up a box of models and things like Warcry is really cool to scratch the itch to try something different if you want to explore it. But the cost is as much as you want to make it, and it's about your I guess persistence and your enjoyment. If you're enjoying OBR and you're just going to run it and you're enjoying it and you're having fun and you're playing games, run it for as long as you want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is where I don't believe the play what you love, like, adage in total. Sorry, Soren, you had a thought while Coach was speaking. Do your thought real quick before I add more.
I was going to say, on that point, I have over 8,000 points of painted Slanesh between Slaves to Darkness and Hedonites.
But you're
I
getting
own zero of the new kits.
you're getting a lot of your value out of painting, though. Like, that's where a lot of your value comes in this hobby.
But it still means what it means for me is I cannot do the new kits yet because I still have things that I've got to paint that are on my table to paint, and my budget just will not allow me to buy more.
So you
Now,
stick pretty stringently to your budget, like strictly to your budget. Like, this is the budget. This is what I paint.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have 5 kids. If you don't budget, if you don't plan, you fail.
Well, this is where I said before, like my hobby budget comes from what I make doing AOS RantCast and streaming. That's what it, chat gang, as much as like James Workshop willed Ossiarch Bone Reapers into existence, chat gang willed my ability to play Ossiarch Bone Reapers into existence, because like that was funded. That was 100% funded by this show. And like you said, like, you got to have a budget. Like, I think we're kind of all in agreement that you need to have some sort of budget and awareness of your entertainment dollar, how much of that you're willing to spend. $60 is a retail. I love video games as an analog because I think it's one of the most ubiquitous hobbies out there. $60 for a full retail game. Like, you have an idea of when those video game releases are coming. I wish Games Workshop would communicate with us a little bit better when their stuff's coming, so I can be like, oh, yeah, deadlines get pushed, but I can budget for that. I really wish they would do that, but, that's neither here nor there. It is what it is. I know a box of Mortek Guard what it costs now, and I know I don't need all 60 of them immediately today. I can only paint 20 of them in about a week, right? So, yeah. What was I going to say? Man, I lost it. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, we've been beating the same drum about planning an economical way either to expand or getting into the hobby, specifically from the Age of Sigmar side. So throwing a dart somewhere in that ballpark as a new train of thought probably isn't a bad idea.
I made the heinous mistake of trying to read and talk at the same time, and I just should never do that.
I think, Meth, what you got to consider on this topic, right? Where this is a very broad topic. You've got, being more financially savvy in the hobby. We have a pool of people who are getting started. How do you make the right decisions getting into the hobby? And we've started kind of talking about things. You don't need to go out and buy every single paint to get started. You then have people like us who have been in the hobby for a while, and how do we make better decisions? And it's from that, I guess, the conversation kind of probably continues, right? And, like I saw, is it Dramus as well? Made a really good point. Still playing Beasts of Chaos since 2005. So not falling on the hamster wheel of releases is important. It's a bit of self-resistance. And sometimes it's important just to flip your army. I've got a Sylvaneth army I started 2 years ago that I'm just waiting for Broken Realms or Sylvaneth to get good again. I'm going to sell it. I know now that I'm not going to play with it. I'm not getting enjoyment from it. And if I haven't played it in 2 years, then why am I keeping it? So I might as well sell it at a loss if I have to. Because it's a concept called the sunken cost fallacy. Money I spent on my Sylvaneth 2 years ago is gone. I can't change that. So I might as well sell it and then reinvest that money into events, into future hobby, pay down debts. There's no point sitting as inventory not doing anything.
Yeah. No,
So sometimes it's just important just to cut your loss.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got some Blood Angels here that, I mean, I can get $100 for a bunch of medals and stuff like that, and it's like, they're not going to appreciate. They're not going to be worth any more money than they are now. They're honestly only going to go down in value, and getting over the sentimentality of like, this was my first fully completed like plus some models type army, where I felt like I had the range, I had everything I wanted to do with it. I never in Warhammer Fantasy Battle when I was playing Undead, I was mid playing Undead, mid collecting it. Didn't even get to 2,000 points back. I think we played at 2,500 even, like because our store was weird and there wasn't the internet to tell us we were right or wrong, right? Like,
No, heroes cost really were quite expensive. Like I think looking at the average army list, it was like 2,250 points up to 2.5K. So
yeah. So
they kind of floated a little.
Yeah, we were playing around like 2,500 back then, and I never got to 2,500 when the army book Undead, the book I started collecting my army with as like a 6th grader, right? As a kid, I didn't get to finish it, and then Vampire Counts came out, and some of the stuff I had already collected wasn't in the Vampire Counts book, so like I like kind of got reset. And by the time I went off to college, like I just started playing at our like 2,500 points values by buying a bunch of extra crap I didn't, like artifacts and really suboptimal army, upgrading unit heroes when you wanted, buying scythe blades for my chariots, things like that. But when I finished my 40K army, I was like, oh yeah, I've got it, like this is it. And so I have some sentimental value because that was kind of like the first army I like fully completed. And now, like Osiarch Bone Reapers, I have like over 3,000 points. Like I can build it in any direction I want to. But when I bought in with Death, I bought off of a Facebook buy-sell trade. A box of Death primed. Here's everything in it. It's primed. And it was like $200. And I got a shit ton of models for $200. And one of the things that maybe people aren't aware of when they're buying stuff is thinking about the points of what you're getting. And that points do fluctuate a little bit, but I think thinking about the amount of points you're buying for your dollar amount is something to keep in your mind when you're buying into an army. Because it's the difference between, like Daughters of Cain, super points efficient, also makes a more expensive army, right? This is why Beastclaw Raiders is one of those, like, I think Beastclaw Raiders and Sons of Behemoth have a real appeal. Sons of Behemoth is a much more expensive version of Beastclaw Raiders. But the idea of the time now, I only have 6 models and I'm playing a game, right? Like, that's super appealing. But in so many ways,
It's
go ahead.
You mentioned Daughters of Cain and Beastclaw Raiders. I went ahead and I got into Maw Tribes thanks to Doom and Darkness and Haywo. And I'm right now in the middle of painting my 3 Start Collecting special for Beastclaw Raiders. Mm-hmm. So for less than $250 US, I have a 2,000 point army that is actually viable.
Yeah.
You cannot get that in any way with Daughters of Cain. Even with a 600 point model like Marathi, she's still $130.
Yeah.
Plus you need your troops. Plus you need this. Plus you need that.
Yeah, I'm going to put on my tinfoil hat and say this is part of the reason that like Maw Tribes feel a little neglected, quote unquote, is because they're such a budget buster army. It's like the value, the 2 best values in Start Collecting. We could talk values in Start Collecting boxes and like what you're actually getting out of them and what getting into the.
I wish my army had one.
But LRL. But the value in the Start Collecting boxes for Flesh Eater Courts and Beastclaw Raiders is outstanding. Outstanding value. So I feel like those armies, when you had Flesh Eater Courts being one of the most overpowered armies on the table, and its Start Collecting was of that high of value, it was just like gonna be a nightmare hellscape for a little bit in the competitive scene because you had new players. Just it was so easy to jump into the game. I don't lament that though. I think that's awesome for getting people into the game. It at a little bit of the expense of the people who are already in the hobby, right?
Yeah, I think that Games Workshop, it would be more like better. Right? I'm trying to think of just a more articulate way to say it. So someone put up an interesting graphic on the Lumineth Facebook group the other week. Actually, when Lumineth went on pre-order, and so they put the Stormcast Ballista next to the Lumineth Ballista. It's the same thing. It's a war machine about the same size and 2 infantry models. And the Stormcast one, I believe, is $20 US cheaper than the Lumineth one. People are like, "Is this price increase fixing?" And I'm like, "No. This is a starter set thing. It's called easy to build, which means that most of these are 3 or less parts per model. And the Lumineth Ballista is like 3 sprues with a bunch of individual articulate plastic pieces. All of the Underworld's warbands now, once they go out of rotation, like once they're no longer part of the cycle, they sell them again without the cards, without the and they're no longer in colored plastic, so they're in regular gray plastic, and they are a little bit cheaper too. I think they're usually between $25 and $30 per warband, give or take a few dollars, depending on whatever arbitrary flavor at the fringes Games Workshop decides to add. But those easy to build kits, I wish were a little bit more sprinkled out across the armies, especially in that starter set sort of like, or like start here section.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's easier for people to build them because of the fewer parts. Like Reichnor the Grimhailer, one of the most complex models in terms of detail I've ever seen, which is the Nighthaunt guy on the flying flaming horse.
Yep.
Is like 8 parts. Like, why can't every army have something like that? Like, even if it's a small, like it's like a smaller hero or like a unit of like 5 or 6 guys,
Mm-hmm.
like
Well,
that would be.
I don't want to
Yeah.
get lost in the weeds too much on the
Yeah.
build portion of it, because these are certainly things
Yeah.
that no new players really even aware of. I don't think.
Yeah.
Like, but like there is. I mean that it comes to like value in your time, right? Like these are
Right.
these two components we're always balancing.
Yeah.
Coach,
Well,
looks like,
yeah, I'm sorry. I think I overshot and said it's like Warcry. Like, you want to try out a new army, like feel how it works in Warcry first, or maybe like painting those models for a Warcry warband is an economical way to try and dabble, I think.
Do you think Warcry is a good bridge game? I've heard criticisms on both sides, and I haven't made up my mind yet. I feel like Warcry doesn't play with the same rule set as Age of Sigmar, so I don't know.
No, it does. I think in terms of a hobby project, Warcry is a good bridge.
Okay.
Because it lets you, like, that's why I brought up the Underworld's warbands, because the Underworld's warbands, while they don't create complete Warcry warbands, they are more characterful models. They within a Underworld's warband, they tend to cram in more themes present across an entire army, like the OBR warband, for example, that's coming out.
That I have pre-ordered.
Right.
I'm in queue to throw money at it when they say they have availability.
Right. There are textures, like even aesthetic textures from across your entire miniatures range, funneled into one warband of 5 to 7 models.
Well, even like the skeleton Shadespire box, where that's just all the different skeletons. I have that. I just threw them in my normal skeleton. My 100 skeletons. They're just sitting there in like these blocks of 40 at various points, just for that visual interest. I think that's.
So I would say
those are really good for that. I think.
Yes, yeah, I would add the caveat of painting or starting with a warband in terms of a hobby project is a good bridge, rather than like the gaming, because it won't play like regular Warhammer. I don't think it's intended that way.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Coach, looks like you were hanging on to a thought there.
No, am I mute? No, I'm not mute. No, I'm just generally listening. I'm looking at the chat, kind of getting the general vibes. And I guess for me, when I'm thinking about this particular topic, and funnily enough, I've been building a video that I hopefully will record soon about getting started in Age of Sigmar and some considerations. I think there's a couple of different options and some things to consider, and which then armies it kind of lead you towards, depending on what's important to you. But then there's other things like just what we would term as hobby hacks, simple little things that we've learnt along the way. A prime example is I don't buy Lamian medium from Games Workshop. I go out and buy acrylic medium and I make it up myself, and that one pot of medium from the art store has lasted me 2 years and I've still got it, as opposed to those $11 pots of Lamian medium. It's all the little hobby hacks and all the little things that you learn around mixing paints and writing down recipes like 2-to-1, Mephisto red with, Joker Ridge orange gets me a
I
color.
like this one.
As opposed to, yeah, of course you do, but as opposed to, having to go out and buy the 10 different versions of red. There are so many ways you can be economically viable in this hobby. I talked about the ultrasonic cleaner, learning how to strip your models. Things like I go to a lot of bit sites. Bitsandkits.co.uk is one of my favorite. And instead of me buying parts for conversions, I'll go out and buy specific pieces of the kit, and I can save a whole bunch of money. I'll get a whole bunch of what I need, as opposed to buying a kit that I only need 2 things from. So there's a lot of ways to get the most out of your hobby and do some pretty ambitious stuff. I guess it depends on what we're trying to strive for.
Well,
is it the new player focus, or is it about like we're already in the hobby and how do we make the most of it? How do we stretch that hobby goal further?
I had hoped, like I have my notes here, and we've kind of gone off the script for a while. I don't take notes. That's a lie. I had notes here, and we went off the script. I wanted to start out with kind of like look at it like sort of holistically as like, okay, new player, now you're in the hobby, and then is kind of how I looked at it. So maybe we move past new player hobby. New players, like to summarize, new players. First off, I think you really need a good idea of like the army you're gonna get into. From there, make sure that it's what you want to play. Like do all your research that you're gonna do to get into the game, and then from there, you don't need to buy the whole range.
Yeah,
buy bits at a time. Buy what you need for the army you want to play, and because again, you're always gonna have this time factor, this time modifier looming over you to stop you from like. You want the whole range of models. I understand. I also own whole ranges for my armies. But, like, how much of it's sitting on my shelf, and now I'm like 3 armies deep, and I'm like, it's like a train wreck of, like, or 3 stooges trying to get through the door. I can't possibly work on all 3 of my armies at the same time. And my Blood Bowl army, and Curse City that's coming out. Like, you're going to you got to stack it. So really buy what you need to play, and you have time to indulge the hobby as you go along. Is really like one of my big tips, and from there I think moving on to
and what I was kind of holding my thought around was again Drummus, another great shout out here, making the comment around in fantasy it was very hard to learn what parts of the army you needed before getting it onto the table. And again, there are so many cool tools now. For example, Martin talked about Warcry. More importantly, you got Tabletop Simulator. So if you want to see how the new Fox works in Luminaire Thor,
what a great tool
is the
for
Fox. But you can tap into that and test and proxy and see if it's going to work in your army the way you envisioned it, as opposed to maybe it's better, maybe it's worse. And instead of going out and buying it, building it, painting it, and then realizing it doesn't work the way you want to work, you can kind of circumvent that whole thing through either proxying, get yourself a round base, and actually use a proxy. Mate,
I have traced pieces of paper. I have traced bases onto pieces of paper to have pieces of paper because sometimes I don't have a pile of bases around.
Bro, when I started Warhammer, I'm gonna big dick energy here. When I started Warhammer back in the day, when you bought your Start Collecting box or your 2nd edition 40k, it came with a cardboard dreadnought. When you bought your 3rd edition or 4th edition High Elves, it came with a cardboard dragon. You didn't get a real dragon, you got a cardboard dragon in your box.
It was Eltharion, right?
I remember that.
And the irony is, it's a legitimate Games Workshop model, and I could go play at a tournament with it because it is a Games Workshop piece of cardboard.
Today,
but the point
you could be on stream with GWTV with this.
The most important part there is that I can proxy, and I think that's where I don't have to rush out and go buy models. I can actually go and buy the appropriate base. I could represent it with my friend, or I could use something like Tabletop Simulator to test something out before I made that purchase. So again, another way you could be economically viable in your hobby.
I really do proxying in Age of Sigmar. So I came over from Magic the Gathering, as many people know. Like proxying in MTG, not a big deal. You write what the card is on a piece of paper, and you put it in your sleeve with your basic island, and you go and you goldfish a few games. Nobody cares. and then I go and fill up my cart, click boom, Star City Games, they send me like an entire deck because I've goldfished it a couple times. I still do that in Age of Sigmar now. This is a habit I brought over from Magic the Gathering. I didn't know it was it's like the Dave Chappelle joke. Like I didn't know that I couldn't do that. Like there's so many people like have a really frown on the like proxying in Age of Sigmar. I understand where it comes from. I get the 40k, you don't even have to paint your models, like horror stories I've heard. I get it. And like yes, do paint your models. But when you're talking about being financially like aware and responsible, it's okay to proxy. Set your expectations with the person you're about to play with. Hopefully you're playing with a friend because friends.
Well, you got to ask your opponent. So if I walked to a local game store, like my friendly local game store, and said, "Oh, these are eels, and I've got a toy dinosaur that's going to represent my engine of the gods," that's a little bit different than playing at home with with a close friend.
Right.
Or we have an agreement like, "Hey, I want to test some models. Do you want to test some models?" So I think proxying is okay within context.
Right. Right. And
Because again, like
when I was building my Vampire Viking.
Go on, Martin.
No, just a quick thing. When I was building my Vampire Vikings army, Archon took like 8 weeks to paint. So for a while, I just used his base, and on some masking tape, it said Archon the Black out to lunch. And I just played with his blank base for about 8 weeks.
Well, like people again, like there is an aesthetic quality to this game that makes it different from other games. Like it's not that I want to see your crystal brush army, I want to see you on the table, like it reminds me a lot of like I watch tons of cooking shows. Like you always see this part where the judges are like, but it's you on a plate. And they forgive the fact that it's rustic, or they forgive the fact that it's not this amazing restaurant quality dish, because like when the person's cooking it, they can taste the food and they go, "This is you." Like I get this narrative that you've presented me with the art form in this case being food, and in our case being Age of Sigmar. Like Martin, actually, you opened my eyes a little bit ago because like I've been struggling with how do I convert Ossiarch Bone Reapers. I think the sculpts they're made by professionals and they're kind of perfect out the box. And you're like, it's not about making a perfect model again. It's about making your model. And I'm like, eureka.
Yeah.
Aha. Like, I'm not going to replicate Games Workshop. I'm never going to be the painter of other people who have started earlier on in their journey and so on, and they're way deeper in. But, like, I can be my painter and my hobbyist. And I do want to, in part of financial advice, I think confidence is important. Invest confidently in yourself, right? Like don't go out and buy the whole range. But, like, when you're worried about buying this box and now you have this $60 box and you're going to ruin it if you paint it, well, actually just paint it. You'd be surprised. And you can always paint it again. That's the beauty of paint.
I think Goobertown says paint boldly.
Yeah, hobby bravely, right? Is Vince.
There are no mistakes in your hobby. Really, it's not. There's no mistakes in your hobby. Even if you cut up a model almost unforgivably. Hey, look, it's base rubble. There are no mistakes. There really are not.
Right.
Be brave.
Yeah, be brave. There you go. So yeah, Wet Palette was another one. Drew Mouse, you just been like, you should come on the show and just like also, like you should be the host right now, because I keep taking us on tangents. Wet Palette, that's going to save your paint a little bit, right? That's a
yeah.
There are so many hobby hacks. You can buy. So, like when I paint my terrain, for example, I buy acrylic inks and I'll make up my own. I'll make my own Nuln Oil and Agrex Urkshade that I use for terrain. I don't think the effects are nearly as good on miniatures, but for terrain, like there's no way in hell I'm using 5 bottles of Nuln Oil on one piece of terrain. So, or my army's on parade board. There's no way in hell. But again, there's just little hobby hacks. Martin, you were saying something. Talk.
9-cent craft paint. That is my friend.
What's
Yeah,
that?
I was
And if I
about to say
big board, I went and I got a quart of house paint. It's even cheaper.
depending on where, say this might be more acutely the perspective of someone coming from elsewhere in the hobby to here, or they're trying to level up a little bit, and especially in
I like the
England,
vernacular
from those,
level up. I like that. Go on.
level up your hobby, like take it to the next step. There can be what I call unofficially the Church of Heavy Metal, which is basically how the Games Workshop box art is painted, is treated as sacrosanct. Not only is it the best, but to be critical of it is to be in a space where your opinions are wrong. And that is flat out not true. The Games Workshop chicken nugget pots aren't the end all and be all. You can still use them. They're good. But it's okay to dabble in stuff that might be a little bit more affordable or get you a little bit further, like economically, like certain Vallejo paints of the same color, and maybe a bigger dropper bottle or something. And on the other coin of that, the analysis paralysis of there's like 30 plus gigantic miniature paint ranges. Which one do I use that is the best? And the answer is there isn't. Like just use what colors you want. You don't have to pick up every one.
If I may, like on this colors thing, and Coach has brought this up earlier, like don't have to buy every color. For me, this is the hardest part of hobby. Because like when I'm looking up guides to painting and stuff, like Duncan, adore Duncan. Like Duncan's tutorials, tooth and coats and stuff like that. Like I didn't know who Vince was initially. I watched Doom and Coach were kind of like the first two. Haywo hadn't even done his video when I had first started his Adepticon video and then his Stormcast video. He hadn't done that yet, so like, I was just getting into it. But like I could watch Duncan and be like, you just need these 3 colors and boom. And he taught me how to paint Azurite ruins, and he taught me how to do this stuff in like really communicable ways. It's hard.
He's still doing it.
Yeah, it's true. He's struck out on his own and it's brilliant. But like, there's this thing where like when I'm looking at a different paint, like a Vallejo, is that the color that does the thing I wanted to do for this tutorial? I guess I don't know, and sometimes I feel like because I don't know, I buy and I spend more trying to get the right thing. And you said there is no right thing, but to even begin to know what to buy to begin with feels like a daunting task.
Well, so
right now I need a yellow. I need a yellow for because my green, it just needs that one extra color.
The answer is to buy any yellow because it's probably fine. Like I think there's like because these paints aren't like in opaque black bottles. You can see what it is if you pick it up and turn it upside down. You can see that color. If you like that color, buy that color. You can probably make it work, even if you're not and I put this in air quotes, good hobbyist.
Dana Howell has the answer to your question, which is pale sand.
Yes, which I have right over here. And I use
Dana Howell.
I use it to paint. I use it to paint one type of cloth. No, there's this whole thing. Like, first of all, Games Workshop, Vallejo, the new AK paints, because AK, like I think they're called Generation 3 or whatever. It's their own line of acrylic paints. Instar Paints is another one. I think they're UK only. They're all basically the same. They are miniature figure painting size paint pots or bottles or whatever you want to call them. They'll get the job done. It's okay to accrue, to donate some if you're not using them anymore. Like I gave Oscar Lars, like right when lockdown started, I reformatted all my paints. I donated like about 40% of all the paints I owned to him, and stuff like that. I think you should just start, just pick paints off the wall, and they don't have to be Games Workshop paints. Your models won't catch on fire if you don't apply Games Workshop paint to a Games Workshop model.
Two more things I'll add to this. One, your Games Workshop painting app has an inventory, so if you're not having your inventory on shelf, you've already been to a game store and you're like, oh, do I have X paint and I need X paint for my army.
By the way,
like,
brilliant, fantastic shilling. I loved it. Like
what the free app? The free app.
No, good shout, buddy. Keep going.
No. Hear me out. There's actually another app that I use called PaintPot. The same type of thing. It's called PaintPot. And it allows me to track not just Games Workshop paints, but it allows me to track Vallejo and Army Painter
And I
and
saw that Best Coast
P3
pairings
and all
on there
that thing.
too.
Yeah, I never use it. It's my least used tournament software. Sorry, Garrett. But you've probably been into a game store where you're like, do I have, whatever, I don't know, what's this paint? Wild Rider Red. Like, do I own Wild Rider Red? And in the heat of the moment, I probably don't remember I have it. I'm like, oh, I'm at the game store, I might as well buy that paint. But by actually having an inventory and actually keeping it, again, you're not going to make unnecessary purchases. So that's one that I would highly recommend here. The other one, so that's what I was going to say. There's a lot of websites, and if you type in like Games Workshop paint conversion or some type of thing like words like that, a lot of people have actually put together a comparison where they've gone, right, this is Games Workshop paint. What is the equivalent in the other paint companies?
Yeah.
So you can see the paint code for Vallejo with this particular model. So it allows you to branch out to other companies, or if stocks aren't available, you can go out and buy from somebody else.
Yeah.
How's that anti-shilling for you?
I love you, Coach. You know it, buddy. You could also use a Google Excel sheet to track your paints. Yeah. What do we brush cleaner? Is this a waste of money? Did I just waste $2?
No.
No.
I don't know what I use a Masters. Yeah. I work something similar. Yeah. It's a Masters.
They're all the same.
You got to look after your paintbrushes. There is a way to burn money quickly. If you don't look after your paintbrushes, and you don't clean them, you will burn through paintbrushes, and they can be quite expensive unless you're buying cheap ones.
Well, I'm buying cheap ones, but if I'm burning through them every month, this is $10 I'm setting on fire every month, right? Like,
yes.
I mean, we just tell you it costs you like $2.
What's that?
How much was that paint cleaner?
Oh, the paint cleaner is like $2. Yeah. Yeah, and this is not. I'm not going to go through this in a month. Obviously, this is a lot of paint brush cleaner. And it's like, yeah. So, no, I mean painting and the hobby part. There's like these sort of like hidden costs that you don't consider when you go into the hobby. And one of them is, I think the most obvious one is paint. And there is a daunting thing where you're like, okay, I'm about to paint this thing. How do I get it this way? And there are a lot of great tutorials out there for painting something for like beginner friendly. But I think a lot of the videos you see earlier on are like, they are the Dana Howells. They are the Oscar Lars. They are the Trevelyan. Like, where they're like, this is how I did this really intense, awesome thing. And you're like, go ahead.
It's like when you move out of your house for the first time, and I hope most people listening to this have moved out of their home for the first time and they can appreciate this. Is when you move out of home and you're away from mummy and daddy. There's a lot of things you got to buy. You got to buy for the first time. The sauce bottles, the salt, the pepper, the oregano. There's so many things that you just take for granted.
Yeah.
But once you've bought them once you got that sauce bottle, it's going to last a while. But there's that one upfront initial purchase, and Games Workshop and games companies in general make a lot of money up front from that initial purchase. You got to buy those paints, but these paints last for ages. So it's initially very, very, and this is why, again, you probably only need 10 to 20 paints to get started, really, and then everything else is nice to have. And by the way, it was nice to see Warsaw wearing pants on. I was a bit concerned that we might see some underwear when he ran off.
Yeah, it could be hot in Texas. It's true. Yeah, power tools. When you buy the house, the cooking thing is like really good thing. Yeah, I mean, I've luckily I got a lot of paint donated to me. I think this is something we're not talking about. Obviously, don't go around asking for handouts, but the Age of Sigmar community is pretty awesome, and you'd be surprised how many hobbyists, if you like network and you hang out at an LGS or like you're painting at your friend's house, they'll just like, oh, here, have these, here you go, have some paint.
All right, well, Soren is wearing pants and he has something to say.
All right, Coach, he
looks like he should be in the shopping network.
All right, Coach, you're the color.
You're on mute.
Commentary.
You're on mute.
You're muted, Soren. Coach, you're the color commentary. Martin, you are the host. I need to step away for a
All
second.
right. How do we tell him you're on mute? We can't hear you.
Well, Soren is showing off.
I think he's just showing off his insane amount of paint here.
He's
Yeah.
showing off a very nice.
No, this is just one of
There we
several.
go. We got it.
Nail polish racks are the way I store my paints. I want to say I spent $6 for this thing.
Yeah. This is so big I can't even put it in frame.
Martin, we have the exact same one, literally.
Yeah, this
We
thing.
both went to Amazon, didn't we? Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Look at Martin. Look, even the header. Martin, even the top of it.
Yeah, it's the same one. And then I got
I
all
have
of
this on my desk.
I have all the Nocturna boxes. I have my box of what's it called? The face hammer brushes, Artist Opus. I won those in a painting competition. I will open those when I paint my next competition model. I'm not touching those brushes just yet. No, this whole thing, I think that could really be its own show about and I'm sure, like, I know Vince has done a video. I'm sure basically anyone who really wants to gear at least some of their content on YouTube towards new hobbyists has made a video like this, where it's like just cutting through the noise on like what you said, your startup costs. It's like, what do you really need? Most of this is indulgences. What do you really need? You need to place materials to take care of your paintbrushes. You need to know what paintbrushes are going to get you the most bang for your buck. Like, don't just go right out and buy the $40 Winsor Newtons. You can get by with these. Because one of the things that Games Workshop did a few years ago that I think was just, well, it's true Games Workshop fashion. Does anyone remember the Artificer series? Normally,
I got given a few for free, not by Games Workshop, not by Games Workshop.
Well, like the average paintbrush from Games Workshop costs about $8, which is already on the higher end for, like, I would say basic, like, miniature sized paintbrushes. But then the Artificer series jumps to like $20 plus. And I think that's just, and people aren't necessarily going to see that if they're a newer hobbyist and be like, oh my God, I like look at the receipt and be like, I didn't remember paintbrushes costing that much. So it's like you can in that upfront cost, finding the more affordable paintbrushes and how to take care of them. Painting sets, like especially Army Painter, WizKids now is doing it too, where they're putting a bunch of dropper bottles, like a bunch of just primary and secondary colors, and then a bunch of either Reaper Bones or equivalent models in there, just to get people like used to painting models.
Big shout out to Drummers, who made a really good comment again, is makeup brushes for dry brushing.
Yes.
Going to my local in Australia, we've got, like, some quite cheap, like, Japanese stores. I think it's like Diatsu or Diazo or something. And I can pick up a makeup brush for, cents on the dollar. And instead of ruining one of my good brushes to dry brush, and even paying for an overpriced dry brush, makeup brushes are awesome. So don't steal them from uses. Don't take your mum's makeup brush. Go buy your own hobby one. They are really good value.
I just, every brush I ruin becomes a dry brush.
Yeah, that's... And to answer, is it SJ?
Oh, Arcade?
I can't pronounce it. Yeah, SJ. Does anyone buy Games Workshop brushes? Yeah, I do. It's mostly due to convenience. Their brushes are fine. I'll also buy, like, Army Painter brushes. I'll buy, like, I don't care. Like, just whatever's in front of me when I need a brush. I'll go to the cheapy store. But one thing I did learn from people like Vince is is a lot of the big painters don't actually use very small brushes. They actually use what is called a size 2 brush, because it kind of holds the velocity and holds more paint in the brush, and it doesn't dry up as quick. So that was a big lesson for me. I was always trying to go for, like, 1s and 0s and 00s, when actually the best painters out there are not using the super thin brushes. That was a big learn for me.
The smallest brush I use is a size 0. Usually I'm in like 1s, 2s, or go all the way up to the new one I got from Monument is a size 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes
It's-
smooth cover. Yeah.
And speaking of paints, little things that I do to get the most out of my paint as well is you can get little marbles or little steel balls or things that you can put in your paint brush, a paint set, and it helps it from not drying out, and it keeps it mixed. And you can even go as far as buying nail polish, like when you go like a nail salon, you can buy these little devices from Amazon, and they'll actually shake it up. So again, it keeps your paints.
They're
Yeah,
called
like the
agitators.
Vortex. The agitators, yeah. The Vortex is a very expensive brand. You
I
can
heard
buy
so.
really cheap ones as well. Cool. Yeah, great.
Stainless
Again,
steel
if you're looking to get the most out of your paint, even just cleaning the tops of your paintbrush, if you've got the Games Workshop paints, just making sure that's clean so there's no air coming in and drying it out quicker, that'll increase the shelf life of this significantly.
And getting into basing, because friend of the show, Vince Venturella, on his normal Saturday uploads for Hobby Cheating, last week he did basing for free, which was all of these extra materials that you can use like just around your house that like just exist to make bases. My Lumineth, for example, the Lumineth was just like I just indulge. I'm trying to like not how can I spend the most money to make this stuff as pretty as possible. All of these bases I have right here, and I have tutorials on Instagram for them. You can kind of see it. You can see enough because there's still like the white primer on here. This is Sculpey clay, and then I rolled a texture roller on top of it. Let me find like a little bit more of a detailed one. The clay block, as long as I use it fast enough before it dries out, and it takes about like 2 or 3 months to dry out completely before I have to buy another one. But even then, it's like maybe like $12, $15 for a block of the clay. You cut a piece of it off, you roll it onto some ceramic, you bake it for 10 minutes, and just breaking that apart will get me through like 20, 30 bases. And an army like Lumineth, that's a big chunk of your army right there in 30
Well,
30-ish.
I use coffee. So my Cities of Sigmar army is using coffee grounds. So I make a lot of coffee at home, and I use coffee to replicate sand, but also I can do it coarse, I can do it fine, and then after I make my coffee, I can then put it in the oven, bake it to get rid of all the organic kind of stuff, and it's awesome for basing. It's and it's free, like it's literally free. When I go to the beach, I take my dog to the beach quite often. I'll grab sand, like you don't have to grab
baking tea leaves
obviously,
too. I've heard of.
I've seen
tea
some
leaves are great.
I've seen some really cool actually Brendan taught me this technique with like basically just like mulched up leaves and actual basically making a fake mud but putting in like glue with it, and then it like becomes a real mud. You prime it, you've got yourself a basing material. There's a lot of efficient ways to be cheaper with those sort of like residual costs of the hobby that you don't even think about when you're just kind of on the Games Workshop model, or if you're afraid to you've been painting for a while and you're kind of afraid to step outside of that. It's paint, it's plastic, it's glue. Like nothing is permanent. I just pried the arms off of my bone tithe Nexus, which you can actually see hanging out down here below me, black and gold. I just pried the arms off. I froze it and pried the arms off. I'm gonna repaint the whole thing because I want to try a marble technique.
I think what's great is that I think we've kind of shown off that there are different ways to get cost effectiveness from the hobby, and you could probably go on to Vince Venturella, Miniac, Goobertown, DM Craft, Terrain Tutor. There's so many different hobby channels now on the internet that you could probably find a lot of hacks that from a painting perspective, from a hobby perspective, that you don't have to go crazy. I think that's the key. I think if there's one takeaway so far, it's that you don't have to buy everything, and it's something you kind of progress as you go.
Right.
Now I will say this
real quick. Akuli SR, thank you for that Twitch Prime sub. The most economically viable way to support a streamer you like on Twitch. Go on, Soren.
I will say this for those people that actually want a texture paste, you can go to your Hobby Lobbies and go into their acrylic section and buy their texture pastes. And I got a tube of, oh Lord, I don't remember how big, but it's lasted me like 4 years so far, and I'm not half done with it.
Yeah.
For I want to say I paid $4 for it.
Yeah,
You get the texture. It's like paint with sand in it,
Yeah.
uncolored paint with sand. You put that down on your base, you can prime it.
Yeah, I've got
so you economical than with Games Workshop. And even if you want a colored texture paint, you can go get Vallejo for this what 40 mil.
Yeah, I've got.
No.
I haven't gone through. That's the one. Yeah, Tamaya
Yeah.
sand or whatever.
This was $26, but this is like
about the same
2
amount as
armies
the
so far.
GW one.
I'm sure one of those pots is like $70.
Yeah, I've got like a $7 Vallejo one that's huge.
This was $26, but this will last you through 3.5 armies.
Here we go. Ignore the sticky tack and the guitar pick. I got the Vallejo Earth Texture.
Yep.
200 milliliters.
I used on my Armies on Parade last year the Vallejo crackle paint. But while we're whipping our dicks out and showing off all that cool stuff, here's the bottle of medium that I use, and you can see after many years that the line is still just there. And I'll mix it up with special water, just like not from tap water, but your deionized water, and make up your own medium. And I mentioned earlier about making my own like terrain washes. I'll go buy acrylic ink and essentially make up this massive industrial amount of Nuln oil that I'll use for my terrain.
Industrial amount of Nuln oil.
Look how much I've got in my hand. Look.
Yeah, no,
look
that's
right
crazy. How did you make an industrial amount of Nuln oil?
It's with your inks, and then it's a mixture of deionized water, medium, and a bit of dishwashing soap. And again, there's a couple of really good YouTube tutorials that show you how to do this. So for my terrain, when I'm making 500 pieces of terrain for a grand tournament, I'm not using Nuln oil. This is terrain. This is display board. This is not. I don't use this for minis, but again, keeps costs down. And there's just so many ways you can get around spending crazy amounts of money.
Drew Mouse, another economically viable thing you can do with basing is use leftover sprues to cut little bricks and glue them onto bases to rubble and cobblestones. That's fantastic. That also takes care of one of the great questions is recycling sprues. Like, what do I do with these things because I want to be environmentally conscious? Boom, it's now basing. That's fantastic. One of the first conversions I ever did was for a Terminator, Blood Angel's Terminator. You could buy a Sanguine Cup or whatever. I can't even remember what the item was called. You could buy a Terminator Lord with Chalice, and there was no model that had it. So I actually took the sprues and helmets, and I sawed them up, and I took half of the top of a head, a helmet with some sprue bits, and I turned it into this big chalice. That was one of the first conversions I ever did, is using bits of sprue. Sprues work really good on terrain too for various things. Like you can turn them into some sort of effigy type work where you're trying to outline anything you need lines for. Perfect. Scaffolding, stuff like that. Go ahead, Soren.
There's another use for sprues. If you're like me, I use the Tamiya extra thin glue, except I never buy. Yep, I never use that as is. I always add a little bit. Well, I say a little bit. I add the some sprue clippings to every bottle I ever use, because that is a cheaper way to get rid of mold of those lines that you get whenever you put models together than puttying things.
Is it? And then B Lever dropped 1,000 RDP to remind everyone checking and none to fuck with. Purple power for life. What just happened? Oh.
Purple Power's a stripper. So
Purple on plastic, no.
You don't purple power plastic? Is that what I'm gathering?
I mean, I don't strip plastic models, but if I were to do it, I'd use simple green.
I do. I strip all the time. Not only just for OnlyFans.
Not only for OnlyFans.
I'll strip with either simple green or my isopropyl alcohol. So, and that's good for plastics. The only thing I won't do that on is resin. I can strip paint with on resin, but you don't bathe it in. You more like brush it on, and you're very gentle on resin. But that's how you strip models. And when you learn how to do it, you can buy a lot of things very cheap on eBay and on your Facebook pages because they often go very cheaply. And most hobbyists aren't comfortable in that process, so they're not. It's easier to get those models.
So there's a lot of
especially
go ahead.
Especially if that thick paint comes off easily.
Paint.
Or they didn't prime. They just started painting. It just falls off. It's magic. But I think hopefully we've opened up the world to just new, different little hobby hacks that, and I'm sure people, there's probably a million things we could teach people on how we, again, keep more hobby dollars into what we want as opposed to buying things that we don't necessarily need. There's just so many.
Yeah.
There is a process or a facet of marketing that I want to touch on, and that is fear of missing out.
FOMO.
There are a lot of Games Workshop items that are very, very limited.
FOMO.
And I'm not even talking about something like the Indomitus box, which was such a massive good deal, but was sold out in 10 minutes. I'm talking about things like the Pain box, with the Daughters of Cain and Slanesh, things like that come out all the time. Feast of Bones, all of these 2 army kits that are coming out that have an exclusive model that can sometimes take a year plus before you can get things like the Warlock Bombardier and the Archregent.
Well, they've moved away from some of that, but I know what you're still talking about, yeah.
But you look at these models, you look at these kits, and you think to yourself, I have to get this, otherwise I won't be able to get this model for a year, or I'll have to pay inflated eBay prices for it. Well, guess what? Most of the time, you can get a plastic kit and convert for that one-off model. And bit sites are great for this. You don't have to buy a $200 kit to find a way to get your Melusai Iron Scale or your Warlock Bombardier or things like this.
Yeah. I mean, FOMO in general as a marketing practice, it works a lot. It works. It's most companies and video games do it. Video gaming does it kind of rather insidiously, like with exclusive levels and like DLC, and if you don't pre-order this, then you miss this stuff. And they understand that, like, just the psychology of individuals, like, we're, especially Americans, very, very instant gratification. Very, if I don't get it now, then what's the point? Like, there's so much of it, and advertising and marketing has really honed in on this, and it is something to always be aware of. I feel FOMO pretty. I have a good sense of it. My personal isolation in my life, some of the things that are going on in my personal life is exacerbates the FOMO feelings that I get, like missing a tournament. If I miss this tournament, all my friends are having fun, I'm not at it. And all of those emotions can be used to sell you stuff. That's really what like sales is using some emotional thread to make someone use their money. Like emotions as a resource. Like I was a manager in a bookstore for a long time. I had a very particular sympathetic approach to sales, whereas other people have a I don't want to call it an aggressive, but an assertive salesmanship style. Like there's emotions and money are sadly tied together. I mean, that's cough cough. The entire stock market is just the emotions of rich folk. Like money and emotions are very. It's almost like you can't talk about finance without talking about the emotional stuff. And FOMO is one of the weapons of companies. Be aware of it. Guard yourself is about the best I can say. And distance is one of the best ways to fight against FOMO. A little bit of time. Go ahead.
I think FOMO though comes down to being clear on your goals. So, for example, I have not bought Curse City yet,
Guilty.
and that's okay. Like for me, Gargants were the army that I was building for this competitive year. Next competitive year, and my armies on parade is all my converted Daughters of Cain as the Cult of Slanesh. And everything that happens between now and then is just a distraction from my end goal, which is my armies on parade board. I have a vision. I'm building it. I'm doing stuff, and everything is becoming a distraction. So as much as I really like Curse City, as much as I'd love to play Warcry, as much as I'd love to get into whatever it is, it's stopping me from my end goal. So I think the FOMO is only what you allow. And hopefully if you're clear on your goals and your objectives and what you're focused on, and if you say to yourself, I'm going to play this year as Sons of Behemat, and then next year I'm going to play X, you have goals, you will achieve your goals. You'll strive to your goals, and FOMO won't kick in because there's no limited release that'll come out unless it comes out specifically to my army that would distract me from my end goal. And I think that's the reality.
No, this is a fantastic point. I think this is maybe what we need to kind of stick the landing on. We'll talk about like goals and really because I think that's.
And
go ahead.
FOMO, by the way, Flukes, is fear of missing out. So when they say that you've got 2 weeks to order Curse City, and if it's not, or there's only, I see some local game stores on Twitter recently saying, "Oh, our local supplier is only giving us 15 copies."
15 copies. We only got 15 copies.
15 copies. So, like, literally, it's like, well, if I don't put my order in right now, I could miss out. So I'm going to buy it or express my interest as quick as possible. Do I need Curse City right now? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Or do I need, I don't know, what's something that's not Curse City? Do I need the
collector's edition battle tome of a thing? Like,
cool, yeah. Do I need it? Well, no. But then what's proven is like things like the Slanesh dice. If you wanted those dice and you really, really want them, you need to not. Yeah, I've got 3 sets now, and they're lovely. But you can't dick around because they're not going to be on the shelf forever. You are fearing missing out. So
yeah, as it just
go
sorry,
ahead,
just
Martin. You haven't talked for a while.
support,
Go ahead.
yeah, quickly support that. I went online at like right when the pre-orders hit and bought both limited edition books for Broken Realms and the Battle Tome. But as for the kits, like I dabbled here and there, and yeah,
LRL once.
like the kits, and I'm like, it's not like there are only a handful went to each store in my area, and I'm like, that's okay. Like there'll be more. I'll paint the stuff that I still have stockpiled. When it gets close to like, oh yeah, and like the shrine. The shrine isn't available in North America right now because it's probably on a boat somewhere. Not the Ever Given. Apparently, it's like like the Port of Los Angeles and this whole
so it's not the Ever Given. It's on a different thing.
Yeah. All other shipping things just related to the pandemic and just logistic problems. If it gets close to August and this thing isn't available yet, I may pay extra to have a friend in England to ship one to me. But it probably won't come to that. It'll get here when it gets here.
Well, there's I mean, one of the big things is like there's always another way. If you think you missed out, There is always another way. Like, Tyrant Mania, and you actually have been abused by the video game market the same way I did, which is why I've built up a tolerance to FOMO. I am a prey. I am victim to my own hype sometimes, but like beyond that, like I'm pretty resistant to FOMO. I have I can probably count on one hand the amount of like limited collector's edition things I've ever ordered, certainly in the last like 5 years. I've got my Revenant from Doom 2016, which would be 5 years ago, from the collector's edition of that. I have the Lumineth Realm Lord's dice and Battletome because I ordered a birthday present for a friend, and he let me keep the dice and Battletome because he had already bought himself a box. Like, I don't buy into collector's edition, limited time release, yada yada too much. Part of it is because there's always another way, and what Coach said about goals I think is super, super pertinent. I knew, by the way, I mentioned like I got derailed from my goals last year. I think a lot of people did. Give yourself some forgiveness. Have some self-compassion. You know, you're allowed to like, no person like shows up and is just a machine with like everything, whether it's Age of Sigmar or whatever. You're allowed some indulgences. You're allowed to, even if you're trying to be like very frugal and very, very mindful of your resources, you're allowed some indulgences. It won't be the end of the world. Have some self-compassion. I knew if Soulblight was more than a rumor, I'm like, crap. And you add like a derailed 2020 with like Soulblight coming out, I'm just like, yep, well, the script's out the window. But what I need to do is realign. I need to reestablish my goals going forward. I need to go, okay, I know that Soulblight is going to cost me X money, right? And I'm going to get X money by not getting takeout that one time every 2 weeks we get takeout, and not buying craft beer, or not buying beer at all. Or you always find a way to save for the entertainment dollar, I find, as humans. I despise the sort of like social classist stuff I see. Well, you spend so much. Look at how much money you spend on video games. Look at how much money on that stuff. Like, you're always going to find a way to be entertained. You have to. It's a human necessity that we be entertained. Life is hard. Go on, Coach. You're muted, man. You're muted.
You'll make sacrifices too, and this is more of like a life perspective. Is that, you know, Gravelords is coming, right? And I'm like, I'm going to spend all the monies to update my Gravelords, and unfortunately, I only have $100 a paycheck, as you've said, to do that. So I'm going to have a gap between what I want to what I need, or what I'd like, my desired outcome.
Yeah.
So maybe it's time to relook and go, right, well, I'm going to make lunches at home instead of buying out for lunch. I'm going to cut back on other things that I'm doing in order to achieve that goal. Or maybe buying all of the Gravelords in June or November or whenever they come out. Maybe that's not necessarily. Maybe I buy 500 or 1,000 points and then buy more later. So taking that holistic approach and not just having to buy everything just because you feel you need to.
I like the wink there. no, I like I said, a lot.
And by the way, I don't know if they're coming in June. Like, do not be quoting me. Like, it could be November, it could be September. Who knows when, right? But the reality is, you have a deadline, and you will find a way if it's important to you, and you're able to. Maybe you got to pick up some extra shifts at work to get a couple of extra dollars to buy those new models.
Babysit, help out a neighbor with some construction. Like, they're people. This is the thing that like kind of bothers me. Is you're allowed to have fun. You're allowed to enjoy life wherever you are in the socioeconomic economical strata. Wherever you are in that, entertainment is no less important to any person, and you find a way. But it's important to have goals and realistic expectations, right? Like, you gotta. I know, realistically speaking, I cannot paint my Ossiarch Bone Reapers, my Slaanesh, and my Soulblight this year. I know I can't do that and build two display boards. Like, I need to have a realistic set of goals in mind. So Soulblight's probably my priority number one. Everything else I do in the meantime is to be ready to paint Soulblight when that comes out, because that is going to jump. It's going to jump the line. I know that, right? So what does that mean for me? It means finishing up some Ossiarch Bone Reaper stuff that I was like, oh, I don't need this now. I need to get Slaanesh table ready. You know what? I'm going to live in Ossiarch Bone Reaper land a little bit longer, and I'm going to delay Slaanesh land, my vacation home. You got to make sure you got to make sure your forever home is in order before you go mess around with a vacation home. And if you're wondering which is my forever home and which is my vacation home between Soulblight and Ossiarch Bone Reapers, it's a trick question. They're both my forever home. I'm building an extension onto my forever home. Get wrecked. Little vampire wing of my castle. Let's go.
Actually hoping that OVR will actually get to have allies.
No.
Even though Nighthaunt should be their allies, like they are in the stories. But that's
I want to see a 1 in 4. I want to see a 1 in 4 play space played with Ossiarch Bone Reapers. I don't think dedicated allies makes a ton of sense. And I would say other stuff. I don't know if we're in spoiler land. Okay, spoiler warning. You have 20 seconds to clear out. Okay, everybody. Everyone here.
Does that include me?
Are you familiar with Archon and what happened?
You just did a review of the book.
It's been spoiled to me. Like, I looked at the rules.
Someone DM'd me. I didn't have the choice. It wasn't even like I'm gonna go on internet blackout.
Now you know what it feels like for a woman to get like dick pics sent to them unsolicited. You're like, I don't want unsolicited lore. Don't fucking do that to me.
Like,
How dare you?
I don't mind the lore 90% of the time, but when it has to do with the things I love the most, you know, like
so like every other Warhammer fan.
Obviously, death. Like I don't care, but like just don't do that to me. So spoiler warning, everybody. You go ahead and you got 20 seconds. Real quick, Archon. Something happens with Archon. So I had a vision for my ideal death scenario in the next year and a half, 2 years. Everyone cleared out? Spoilers? Okay. I will timestamp it when it's safe, by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're on Spotify listening to this or iTunes, sorry. You just got to hit the little 15 button, skip ahead until I don't spoil anything. So, so bad shit happens to Archon, and what I thought was going to happen in the next, release schedule, Snape killed Archon, so Archon's gone. Well, not gone. No one's ever really gone. It's like comic books, right?
Or like Red Letter Media. Nobody's ever really gone.
Right.
Nobody's ever really gone.
Right.
Yeah. Our good guys up here did some work.
Fine. Eltharion finally got vengeance after not having skin for how many years, whatever. But like, so I was hoping like Archon would get like his Death Magus army with like zombie like flesh golems and all that stuff, and then like you have this like weird conundrum, this problem, because like he's got the Null Myriad and Ossiarch Bone Reapers, and like what do you do with Archon? Can you give him his own legion? Can you give him the Legion of Sacrament back? Can you do? They answered that fucking problem, didn't they? They just, done. I don't even have to fucking wonder about that because I was like coming up with mechanics and rules to make it all make sense. Now I don't have to figure that out. Good job, Games Workshop. Good job. Actually, Vince said to me explicitly, he said, I can't wait to hear your opinion on this. And chat gang, I'm giving you my opinion on this first because you are what's important. I actually think it's really cool. I think it's a really cool plot point. I don't like that Techless is anti-literacy. That's kind of garbo. What is that all about there, Elf Bro?
I haven't read the full story yet. I look forward to every detail. I mean, so I have a unique perspective. Just a quick thing on Warhammer spoilers. You can spoil everything about Warhammer to me because it's story for a strategy game. Like it's the art of the story.
It's a justification for
the toys,
yeah.
right? Like none of these characters are real. Like in terms, like a lot of them, like don't feel as like fleshed out characters should be in like a real drama story where you have like a beginning and an end.
Right. Well,
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, like, I know what happens, but I look forward to like whatever minutia and red herrings, and no one's ever really gone. Like Nagash and Archon will be back in some form either
Well,
soon or. Yeah.
well, Nagash was dead. The majority percentage of my Warhammer career.
Uh-huh.
Like, you think I'm not used to that? Like, come on and at me, bro. Like, because that was one of the first things that happened after this, was like people DMing me, like, what do you think about? I'm like, I was born into this darkness. You merely
Well,
adopted it. Like,
I was actually hoping this would happen. I didn't think Games Workshop was bold enough to do it. So this is the technically it was like a prediction came true, which was fun. That Nagash's hold on the Death Grand Alliance would allow the vampire crime families to rise up, and now we have a mafia style sort of bloodlines taking over Shaiish. I'm all for that. Like, that just leads to more interesting stuff and lore opportunities. Not that I didn't mind it before. It's just I like the direction is the only thing I can say.
I like that I'm trying not to spoil things while still giving spoilers here, because
Uh-huh.
Nagash ain't dead.
I mean, what is dead may never die. Yay for crossing over like your bingo card in franchises.
Yeah. No, it's yeah.
If you want my real opinion, I think Nagash is technically the most powerful god of all of the pantheon of characters we're aware of, and he is elevated beyond a god into becoming a force of nature within the setting, and you cannot kill a force of nature.
Well, he is like death, right? Like
That's exactly
he
it.
has become death.
Yeah, you can get rid of him for the purposes of the brand for a while, which I was hoping they would do, but were not bold enough to do, and now they have, at least for a little while.
I think
and I look
it's,
forward to see what they do in his
like
absence.
I said, I think it was actually like a bold narrative stroke. It makes me feel. It actually makes me kind of like proud they were willing to like take a risk like that, and like as someone who is a gigantic, like, Nagash is my favorite character. A lot of the reason why I love Nagash, though, is because, like you said, like, we just have like these sort of like, we have like these loose structures of a thing that the narrative exists essentially to sell me stuff like toys, to
Yeah.
fill in some gaps and like to get me excited and hyped. And I'm not trying to downplay the narrative, but this is not, you know, like, this is not a Dune like narrative. Like, this is not
This isn't Fargo. This isn't your prime cable show.
right. This is the Sopranos. This is not, like,
That's
it's
fine.
and that's fine. It doesn't need to be, because what it does do is it allows you to infuse and inject a lot of yourself into it. Why do I like Nagash as much as I do? Because he's my Nagash. I've infused a lot of, the Hades and the Greek mythology and all this stuff like into that character. Like, the Skeletor. Yes, I like Nagash because I like Skeletor too. Get at me. Like, I've infused a lot of that stuff into this character, and that's what makes it great in Warhammer. And again, what they did here showed me they were willing to actually like tell a better story and take risks and do stuff that might be not selling models, because there's a Nagash kit that is still in the shop, and maybe I'm less incentivized to buy it because they killed it in the narrative. Like, I think it was bold. I like it. I'm actually really I'm really proud of GW here.
Yeah,
There's
enjoy
your
your vampire crime family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a consolation prize. My first favorite thing, I guess I have to enjoy my second favorite thing for longer. Oh no. Like, Andrew, we hear you really like ice cream, but your favorite topping is caramel. We ran out of caramel. Would you like fudge instead? Yeah.
It's just preparing for Manfred to be a god. So
Get out.
Yeah.
I was ready to like apologize to you, and now I'm not.
Speaking of getting out, I have 15 minutes left before I need to drop off.
Yeah.
But something that I did want to loop back into that, again, our good friend Drummers had mentioned, which was a really good point. They had mentioned that I've found painting small batches of models while slower helps them from burning out. And I think for me, again, this comes back to achieving goals. you don't just lose weight, become a millionaire overnight. It's small goals over time, and painting models, buying your army over time. Again, that kind of helps you not spend too much money. It helps you not buy things that you don't need. It helps you to research and prepare and make deliberate purchases, as opposed to just rushing out buying things. Like when people start in the hobby for the very first time, they go out and buy everything. They buy all the paints. They buy an airbrush. They buy this. They buy that. They don't need half of it, or they bought the wrong thing, so they're going to buy it again. They didn't buy the right airbrush. They didn't buy the right X, or they didn't write the right color. So, it's about going slowly and enjoying the process.
I agree. Soren,
That's
go ahead.
When you go out to buy your video game system, you don't start with your $5,000 PC. You start with your phone. You start with a Nintendo Switch. You start with a smaller console. You're not going out to buy a bass boat the first time you want to learn how to fish. You're going to go buy your $20 Zebco fishing rod. There are other avenues to spend your time. There are other ways that you can spend your hobby time.
Yeah.
And these can range in price, from sitting down and watching your local TV stations, which is essentially free, to, again, buying something fantastically expensive.
So you're saying to like kind of buy the $20 fishing pole. Start there. Don't buy the bass boat.
Right. Start slow.
Right.
Find out what you like, how you like to do a specific thing. If you're more into the game of Age of Sigmar or more into the painting,
That might be
D&D models are much less expensive. You can go and get a 3D printer and print models that are much less expensive than Games Workshop models. If painting is your thing, hey, that is one avenue that you can go down, not to have to spend the money that you're going to spend on $65 for 5 cavalry models.
Yeah, Tyrant Mania says here, tons of board games now with miniatures waiting to be painted. There's painting's your thing, right? Like, I want you in the Age of Sigmar community, by the way. Like, I want you to come game with me. I want you to come play. I want you to go to your LGS. I want you to paint models and do stuff. I truly love this game. I love this community. It's I don't want to sell you on it though. You've got to have your own expectations and your own goals. I'm not. Yeah, in a strict sense, in a philosophical sense, if you make content for something, you're kind of selling something for somebody else. But I'm not here to tell you like 100% just fuck yeah, play Age of Sigmar. It's gonna be the best thing you ever make, decision you ever make. I'm gonna say for me it's a place where all the voices in my head come together to hang out, which is pretty cool because I've got a lot of voices in my head. Martin, anything? You got 15. We got Coach for like 5 minutes now.
Yeah, and it's getting very late here too. No, the only thing I would add is to I would say I'm trying to find the best way to word this. There will always be people in the community who think one way is the true way to hobby, and the answer is your way is the right way to hobby. It's okay to regularly ask yourself if you're having fun doing the certain thing. Like, if is something working, or are you trying? Like, do you feel stuck? Do you feel content? If the answer is in any way something that could use improvement, it's okay to seek out that help either in your local game store, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. and figure out where you can go from here.
Yeah, right on. And Coach, any final soapbox moment? Any advertisement for your OnlyFans you want to get off your chest? You're muted again, brother.
Damn mute. I just told you some really good advice. No, look, I think what we've said is true.
Oh no,
for every...
the final soapbox isn't necessarily about summarizing the show.
Oh, you...
But go ahead if you wanna say some more about the.
No. I've got nothing else to say. If you like anything that we've all said, all of us are on Twitter. Some of us on YouTube. Some of us just join other people's podcasts. I think Martin's been on like 3 this week alone. It's just like the bridesmaid, never to be a bride. Just make a podcast.
He could
already,
make
Martin.
one immediately and just
make one. Like you've been on combat
just make
role.
a YouTube Paint Man paints like.
Yeah.
Good painter man.
You can find me on
stuff.
Instagram. You can find me on Instagram as well as Twitter.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right, I'll use my final soapbox moment to answer a question that's come from a very good person today.
Believer actually said earlier on and highlighted, and I totally missed it. With all these AOS legends present, can we get some AOS 3 speculation? What's the starter set? And then I think that ties
maybe another time.
I think that ties into Coach. Before you go, what is one thing you?
I know what it is. So I know what it is. So I'm not saying. But what I will say is what I would like to see from AOS 3 is I would like to see the double turn reduced impact like it used to be in AOS 1. So I think in AOS 1, before Soul Wars, the losing of a double turn wasn't nearly as impactful as it is right now. So I would like to see some form of mitigation or some type of reduction in that. Because sometimes a double turn can close a game off very quickly. So that's what I would like to see.
Yeah. Do you want my like 10-second thing?
Yeah, go ahead. No, keep going. You're fine.
Yeah, I hope that whatever Kragnos is gives a big boost to destruction. Like I would like to see just more like unique stuff come out of that space. Like I either give orcs and ogres more love or make new things like it's a bug army or whatever the fuck. And number 2, the thing that I miss probably the most, though I understand what it was we're placed with is probably better from like a list building perspective for newer players, where you don't really get to customize characters at all. And I would like to see some sort of element of customization included back into the game, which preferably doesn't cost points, because as soon as Games Workshop adds points to things, those lists become like just a nightmare to balance. Mm-hmm. So I would like to see some sort of like hassle-free way of being able to customize characters a little bit more.
Yeah, Drew Mouth saying Anvil Apotheosis match play, and there's a precedent for that too. Like we remember like the classic vampire buzzsaw from Vampire Counts, where like you're just like building this.
Well, I mean, like just think about like the malign importance items when we got 80 items. Yeah. Imagine if they all had points, and it's like I don't want to give the design studio something else that they have to just do work on, figuring out all of those points. So it's like, but just like give us a mechanic that allows us to do a little bit more with our characters.
I like that. Yeah. What do you want to see, Soren?
I want to see an Indomitus box for Age of Sigmar. I want to see a very good value to army box that just absolutely nails being able to introduce a friend into the game.
I like that. I like that, and it deals with the sort of finance side of things. I got one that might surprise you.
Okay.
Do we want to hear it? More Stormcast. I want more Stormcast. Yeah, no, I'm serious. Like open another chamber, some shit. Like I want more Stormcast in 3.0. Whether it's a new book that like soups it all together nicely and neatly, like a Cities of Sigmar, or I just it's
See,
been
I'm the opposite. I'm the opposite. I'm going to trigger some people, but I want the Stormcasting. Sorry, I want the Space Marining of Stormcast. Separate these people and make them unique. I'm sick of this soup. It's too big. I want chambers to feel unique.
Oh, you want like literal like how you have you know, Blood Angels and Dark Angels. You want that to happen to them?
Yes. Like when I look at Space Marines, like I started 40k in second edition where I needed the same Marines and it was just a different painting scheme and there was a couple of unique characters, right? Cool. I had Bjorn, I had a couple of cool Space Wolf characters. Now when I look at the range, Space Wolf feels Space Wolf.
Yeah.
Blood Angels look Blood Angels. When I look at Stormcast, there is no difference between them.
There's no identity.
Like give me some upgrade kits. Make them actually do something that's different. And that's when you've got me as a buyer. That's when I will get onto Stormcast, is when I can have
your Stormcast.
My Gairan ones that are specific to Gairan, or they had something about them and they feel unique. It's not just picking a list and then changing it depending on which command trait I really need.
I have 4,600 points of Celestial Vindicators, exactly how Celestial Vindicators is supposed to be painted. They have 3 special rules.
Your point's not counter to mine, by the way, Coach. I said, give me Stormcast something. Just give me. I don't care if it's a soup book. If they open a new chamber, I look. I actually really enjoy. I'm a bad guy. I like bad guy factions. Like, why did I talk about LRL as like a vicarious army for me? Whereas like Slaanesh, I bought in preemptively. Like my Beast of Chaos or Depraved drove, and then I bought a Keeper of Secrets, and I'm like, I can't play this army right now because everyone's gonna hate me, so I'll put it on cooldown. Then I saw the mortal models, and I'm like, I don't give a shit anymore. I'm buying in, right? Like that whole process of buying into Slaanesh versus like LRL. Like I really like what they're doing. They're just not for me because LRL are good guys. I play bad guys. And Slaanesh,
you said it, so I don't have to.
Elves are jerks.
Sure, elves are jokes. I mean, being, you know, evil will always triumph over good because good is dumb.
I think that's the best way to end.
No, but as somebody who plays bad guys, Stormcast Eternals are the perfect, they're the perfect good guys for this setting, and as they lose their identity, the setting loses its identity. So like, make them good, make Stormcast great again. There are plenty of factions out there to make great again, but your fulcrum is always going to be Stormcast, and you gotta have that fulcrum in order. Otherwise, the whole game's gonna be out of whack, narratively speaking. Yeah, I know that was off the top rope. No one saw the elbow coming from Mephisto talking about Stormcast. Did you?
No.
All right. You know where to find AOS Coach if you're looking for him. Soren, if people want to find you on Twitter, how do they get at you?
I believe on Twitter it is at Amarel, but you can find me with Soren.
There you go. And I cut you off before, Martin, but one more time. How do they find you on the Instas, on the Grams?
One word: The Wandering Prince. Twitter CV_consigliere, because I was once Sigmar's consigliere. Or you can just type my name into Google and my miniatures come up.
What's that, Coach? What is it?
Can we also make Sylvaneth good again?
Yes.
And can we make Beasts of Chaos all right? Like, can we actually give them like decent, like, I know Stormcast got those really cool rules to now nerf those Beasts of Chaos because they really needed the.
That means they're coming.
Boost.
No, that means they're coming. That means Be'lakor is Beasts of Chaos Battletome 2.0. It's happening.
But
it's happening.
Let's plant some trees and let's get Sylvaneth back all right. Let's get them okay again. I feel a bit sorry for our sapling friends. Trees and goats.
If Sylvaneth are great again, Beasts of Chaos must be great. There is their parallel, right? Because when the trees are great, than the things raiding you through the trees that murder you and steal your stuff to build the herd stone and sacrifice your blood to it are also great. Speaking of vacation armies, I think Beasts of Chaos getting great again is inevitable. That's why I didn't even mention it, because Be'lakor was announced, and I'm like, of course Beasts of Chaos 2.0 is coming out. That my brain just don't need to talk about. This isn't even a hot take. That's just how it is.
Cygor meta confirmed. Guys, get out your kits, build your Cygors. They are about to be busted.
I have 3 of them. I have 2 of them unassembled because I was going to bash them with my Keepers of Secrets for my Depraved Drove. I never did that. I'm happy I didn't, because now I just Cygor it up. But Drewmouse it has his beast since like 2005, or their beast since 2005. That's I want to reset a take Brendan had on my show a couple weeks ago. Brendan Melnick, the Lord of Death. If Beasts of Chaos ever get great, the meta will just be Beasts of Chaos, because everybody is like Drew Mouse, where there's just like 5,000 points of Beasts of Chaos on most people's shelves right now. Like we just want to let me play my goats. Make Bestigors the best again. There's your slogan. Make Bestigors best again.
Now to help AOS Coach, you know what? In 93, 95, when I first started Warhammer Fantasy, you could buy levels of Wizard. Why can't you do that with your tree people?
And give me total power back. Give me total power back.
I love it. I love it.
A level 4 tree mage would be awesome. A forecast mage. Just give me that.
Yeah, total power. Give me the miscast table. Give me there some things from Warhammer Fantasy Battles I'd love to see.
I think your miscast table is in the Soulbound RPG. You can miscast spells, and like this is if you're talking about like bullshit wackiness that is like kind of the Games Workshop humor. Miscast tables and like old terrain rules are like they're like those things that are like kind of quintessentially Games Workshop, and they kind of scrubbed them away as people became obsessed with just.
Well, they try to be more serious.
Well, they
try to be more serious.
They misdirected their efforts. You can clean up pile-ins and save us half the time in the fucking game. You do not need to take away some of the extra cool stuff if you clean up some of the other like finicky stuff. Pile-ins. If you clean up pile-ins, half the game time is you cut every combat phase in half. Clean up pile-ins. Boom. Done. Clean up ranges on models. Boom. Done. Like, and then you can allow some of that wackiness that takes time back into the game, because the stuff that takes the most time is movement, pile-ins, and measuring. Make all that stuff easier. Holy Within needs to be fucking jettisoned from the game. I know it's not going to be. That is, if I were king for a day, I'd be like, gone. We can solve coherency and conga lines a different way. I can just say, don't do conga lines. I can write a rule that says you can't space out the total like footprint of a unit more than X inches in totality, without having me to like fucking finicky like every measure and model and is this holy? No. Coherency, honestly, unit coherency pretty much solve conga lines, because you can like straddle the field for a little bit until somebody keeps you honest and blows up half your unit for free because they can take out a model. Like
this sounds like the next episode of RantCast. What is Meph bringing to the Age of Sigmar 3?
AOS 3.0 predictions. If I were king for a day, boom, this is how I would do AOS 3.0.
There is the name of your next show. If I was a king for the day, that I want you to dress up like the king, and I want you to make AOS 3 predictions. I've got to drop off. It's been absolutely awesome chatting with y'all. And chat gang, thanks for smash those RDPs. I've even built this idiot with flying skeleton.
It's a gorgeous model. Don't even knock it. You know it's beautiful.
He's better than the guy with the rainbow axe. Idiot with I don't know what his name is. Yeah, they're all idiots to me.
The wizard with the hammerhead shark skull head.
You cut me.
Idiot.
Cut me.
Idiot with rainbow.
Idiot
with skeleton. All right, picked out, guys. Drop those RDPs.
Good
See you guys.
Later, man. Thank you for being part of this. I was about to sign off anyway. He's not the one making me
Yeah.
sign off right now. Rocky Boy dropping 1,000 RTP to remind everyone checking it. None to fuck with. OBR built from many idiots. I'm made of tinier men, the tick quote. Yeah, I was any last I didn't want to cut off y'all's soapboxes or anything like that. So we'll reset that real quick since Coach pieced out. Martin, one more time. One last thing, get off your chest.
Atlantic City Open, June 11th to 13th at Harrah's Casino and Resort in Atlantic City. Tickets for Age of Sigmar are still available. I believe we were half sold on Tuesday, and tickets went on sale the day before. So there's still some spots left if you want to try and someone has to go first. We have full COVID-19 safety precautions. Frontline Gaming is mostly in charge of like updating certain things. I can't really speak for them in terms of like, well, do you need proof of vaccination? Feel free to forward me any questions you might have about the Age of Sigmar packet, which is available on the ticket site. Any safety questions or certain things. Frontline Gaming proper, their events email.
Them in the venue are gonna be doing it responsibly too.
But I think we're trending in the right direction. Like even I tend to be like a little bit more on the skeptical side. Like I want this to happen. I'd like us to try and be the first one that sort of transitions us into a summer of like at least some events. So I'm pretty optimistic that this thing is going to go off pretty well. I'm going to chip in prize support in addition to Frontline Gaming, and I look forward to seeing people that do show up as well as participating in other events over the rest of the summer and winter months.
Okay, so I forgot to mention something. So Soren, put on the cowboy hat.
Oh God, what did I do?
You didn't do anything. So hey, chat gang, I didn't advertise this, and Soren didn't want me to mention it. Was him who did it, but I'm gonna go ahead and give away a $100 gift voucher from for Games Workshop to help get you started on your next army or your first army, as it were. So chat gang, you are the show within the show. Like I'm not here without you, and so this is an appreciation for chat gang. This is why I didn't advertise it on Twitter, because then you get a bunch of like randos showing up, and we don't want to take away from we don't want to take away from chat gang. Yeah.
Don't give it to me.
Okay, if I get you, I'll re-roll it. So
sure.
So chat gang, you are the show within the show. So Soren, you're gonna do your final bit while I go ahead and get this giveaway in order here.
Oh, my only final bit is, you know what? Be a nice guy. This community, the reason why I've stuck with this community is for as long as I have is because it's generally filled with nice people. Just be great people. Welcome people into your hobby. That's how you grow your hobby.
There you go.
I've so many places that you go to a poker room, you go to a Magic the Gathering room, they're not talking to each other. They're just being themselves in a room full of other people. There are so many toxic people in every online video game ever. You wonder how multiplayer games are a thing. You go to a 40K room, and some of those people are just absolute tools. Never had a problem with anybody in Age of Sigmar. I just haven't, and I appreciate that. So that's my only thing is just be good people.
All right, so it's a roll of a D25 I gotta go with right here. 17. Manzac Miniatures. Congratulations, Manzac Miniatures. I don't know how much it's going to help you with your endless conversion projects. But thank you for being a part of Chat Gang. Like you're in my rando streams too when I do video games and stuff like that, dude. So I'm proud. I'm super proud. DM me your email address and then I can get you the gift voucher. Can you pay it forward? I don't care what you do with it after it's given to you. If you want a reroll, I guess you can bid for. You can tell me to do a reroll. But if you like, you've won it. It's officially yours right now. All right. RantCast being excellent to Chat Gang here. That's what we do. Sorry, Martin. What did you say?
No, nothing. It's just like, yeah.
So I'm just gonna. So yeah, go ahead and you could DM me if you want to pay it forward. You know, try to get a friend into the game. Whatever. You've won it now. It's yours. Chat Gang. Again, you're the show within the show. You're the reason I do this thing. Thank you both for being on tonight. Thanks, Coach, earlier on. I know we kind of meandered through that topic, but knowledge isn't linear. It's actually more of a web, how we connect thoughts together, and so that's why I rant the way I rant. That's why we do the show the way we do, because it should be a spider web of thought that helps you see the world in a little bit more of a three-dimensional sense rather than a linear, I'm telling you how to live your life. I'm not about that. And what Storm was saying at the end there, accept more people into the hobby. It's the more we game together, the more we get along, the better it all is at the end of the day. We live in this great time period where we can play games and make art and compete for the sake of playing games and making art and competing. I think that's beautiful. There's a lot of bad out there, but that stuff gives me a lot of solace when I think about how, I can just, there's a time when, we made war games to practice for war. And now, I can just play a minis game to, meet people and hang out and drink a few beers. I think that's pretty great.